Chapter 2803, Chapter 2803, Are You Stupid? Chapter 2803, Are You Stupid? She's not dead. When King Cold Eye saw Lin Xuanjun walk out, his expression darkened. He had seen the situation yesterday clearly in the blessed heaven world square. How could she have survived until now after suffering such serious injuries? Furthermore, it seemed like Lin Xuanjun was in a good state and was clearly out of danger. King Cold Eye's expression changed erratically before returning to normal. He smiled and said, I can't say that I'm disappointed. You were lucky this time round, but you won't be so lucky next time. Furthermore, Xiang Meng of my Heavenly Eye world snatched away more than 1,000 battle merits from you guys. You should be the ones disappointed. Lu Yun said indifferently. Losing battle merits is nothing. As long as we're alive, we can always get back the lost battle merits one day. Ha 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 ha. King Cold Eye burst into laughter. Lu Yun, you're too naive. As long as I'm around, the people of your sword world will never be able to obtain battle merits. Every time our Heavenly Eye clansmen see someone from your sword world, we'll kill them. If we see them twice, we'll kill them twice. We'll kill until the perfected spirits of your sword world will never be able to rise. We'll make sure that the people of your sword world will never dare to step foot into the evil fiend battlefield. You! Bai Tianqing was enraged when he heard that and glared angrily. If not for the fact that fighting was prohibited in the blessed heaven world, he might have already fought King Cold Eye. Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others had grim expressions as well. King Cold Eye, don't go too far. Feng Su clenched his fists slightly. Go too far. King Cold Eye chuckled. Didn't you guys say it so well when you were meddling in our affairs? Fights in the evil fiend battlefield happen between those of the same cultivation realms. Even if they die, they can only blame themselves for being inferior. So, how am I going too far? Lu Yun took a deep breath. King Cold Eye, your Heavenly Eye race has 2 supreme perfected spirits now. Naturally, you have the right to be arrogant. However, there will be a day when supreme perfected spirits will be born in our sword world as well. At that time, we'll settle everything in the evil fiend battlefield. In fact, that was the case. As of now, Peak Master Su Zhu of the 9th Sword Peak had already comprehended the immortal vanquishing sword. As long as he cultivated to the Paradise Void realm, he would become a supreme perfected spirit. Bai Mingxue had transcended the unprecedented 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, and even obtained the inheritance of another peerless divine power of the Sword Dao. There was also Yun Ting. His talent in the Sword Dao was rare throughout history, and he had long comprehended the immortal vanquishing sword to the level of a quasi-peerless divine power. Both he and Bai Mingxue were only at the convergence realm. As long as they did not die prematurely and had sufficient time to cultivate and comprehend in the future, there was a high chance that they would grow into supreme perfected spirits. Of course, the cultivation realms of the 3 of them were relatively low, and it might take tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years for them to cultivate to the Paradise Void realm. As of now, the person who had the greatest hopes and chances of becoming a supreme perfected spirit was Lin Xuanjun. Oh! King Cold Eye deliberately provoked. Which day will it be? In my opinion, why don't we do it today? If you have the guts, don't just argue with me here. Let the few perfected spirits of your sword world enter the evil fiend battlefield to let their actions do the talking. Lu Yun harumphed coldly and remained silent. Not to mention that Lin Xuanjun, Wang Dong and the others were injured. Even if the 8 of them recovered, it was impossible for them to enter the evil fiend battlefield and take the risk. Furthermore, King Cold Eye was clearly deliberately provoking everyone from the sword world. Lu Yun and the others naturally would not fall for it. King Cold Eye did not hide his voice the entire time. The commotion here had already attracted the perfected spirits of many worlds to watch. Everyone gathered and discussed. What's going on? Why is the Heavenly Eye world on bad terms with the sword world? I heard that Heavenly Eye world destroyed the 7-star sword world and killed billions of living beings. Later on, a group of people from the sword world bumped into them and saved thousands of cultivators from the 7-star sword world. Thousands of people from the Heavenly Eye race even died, and the 2 worlds became enemies because of that. In the evil fiend battlefield yesterday, Xiang Meng led 9 Heavenly Eye perfected spirits and defeated Lin Xuanjun and the others of the sword world. Lin Xuanjun almost died. Ha 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 ha. Seeing that more and more people were gathering around, A king expert of the heavenly eye race burst into laughter. Everyone, take a look. The perfected spirits of the sword world are all useless and cowardly. They're so frightened by our heavenly eye race that they don't even dare to enter the evil fiend battlefield. Another king of the heavenly eye race said, "In my opinion, you sword cultivators should scram back to the sword world and hide obediently. Don't come to the blessed heaven world lest you embarrass yourselves." The discussions in the crowd intensified and laughter sounded from time to time. Everyone from the sword world felt their faces burning with anger when they heard that. However, everyone knew in their hearts that entering the evil fiend battlefield now was no different from committing suicide. Everyone could only endure this humiliation. Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the other number 1 experts of the various sword peaks lowered their heads one after another and clenched their fists in silence. Who said that no one in the sword world dares to enter the evil fiend battlefield? Right then, a woman's voice sounded from the crowd in the residence. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young woman walking out of the crowd. "Baiming Xue, stop fooling around." Lu Yun scolded with a frown. Afraid that no one from the sword world would accept the challenge, King Cold Eye's gaze landed on Baiming Xue and he asked with interest, "Little girl, you dare to enter the evil fiend battlefield?" "I'm not talking about meal." Baiming Xue shook her head. "I'm referring to my master." King Cold Eye raised his eyebrows and asked, "And who's your master? Come on and stand out for me to take a look." Baiming Xue said, "He's not here. He should have entered the evil fiend battlefield by now." "What?" Before King Cold Eye could react, Lu Yun, Yulan and the others were shocked. Lu Yun and the others thought that Baiming Xue was joking and hurriedly released their spirit consciousnesses to search the surroundings. No one realized the severity of the matter until they discovered no traces of Su Zimo. Did Brother Su really head to the evil fiend battlefield? Lu Yun looked at Baiming Xue with a serious expression and asked in a deep voice, "When did he leave?" Baiming Xue thought for a moment. "He left right after saving senior sister Lin." "Oh no!" Lu Yun was anxious and angry as he shouted at Baiming Xue, "Are you stupid? Why didn't you stop him?" Now that Su Zimo was implicated, Lu Yun lost his composure as a peak master and his tone was much heavier. "How can I stop master from going to the evil fiend battlefield?" Baiming Xue was puzzled as well and asked instead. Furthermore, in her heart, there was no need to stop her master. Lu Yun said, "Even if you couldn't stop him, you could have told us earlier and it wouldn't have been too late." "But now." Yulan had a guilty expression and was filled with regret. "It's our fault for not paying attention after we saw that Xuanjin had recovered." Feng Su sighed. "It's mainly because no one expected Brother Su to be so rash as to run to the evil fiend battlefield himself." From outside the door, King Cold Eye was naturally happy to see the worried expressions of Lu Yun and the others. To think that things would take a turn for the better. Someone had actually gone into the evil fiend battlefield to die. A heavenly eye race being whispered into King Cold Eye's ear. His eyes lit up as he suppressed the excitement in his heart and said in a strange tone, "Oh my! I just heard that this sword cultivator Su of yours is also the peak master of the 9th sword peak? How impressive! He must definitely be extraordinary to be able to become a peak master." Chapter 2804. Chapter 2804. Risk? Chapter 2804. Risk. Everyone in the sword world could hear the mockery in King Cold Eye's words. Only Baiming Xue nodded and said seriously, "You're right. Master is indeed extraordinary." Those words naturally attracted even greater ridicule from the heavenly eye race. A series of laughter sounded from the surrounding crowd as well. "I heard that the peak master of the 9th sword peak is only a perfected immortal at the celestial being realm. A celestial being perfected immortal dares to enter the evil fiend battlefield alone. He truly doesn't know his limits." Lu Yun and the others had ugly expressions. Su Zimo's identity was special. To the sword world, he was not only a perfected immortal. Even his title as the peak master of the 9th sword peak was merely his public identity. The sword world valued Su Zimo even more than Lin Xuanjin. If the few old fellows of the sword world knew that something had happened to Su Zimo, Lu Yun and the others would definitely be unable to absolve themselves of the blame. Lu Yun's heart was filled with regret. He glanced at Bai Ming-Xue and sighed. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have brought you and Brother Su here. Bai Tianqing grumbled. Brother Su is only at the celestial being realm. Why did he go to the evil fiend battlefield alone? Bai Ming-Xue said, of course he did it to take revenge on those people from the heavenly eye race. Brother Su is too rash. Bai Tianqing was a little flustered as well. Bai Ming-Xue looked at Lu Yun, Bai Tianqing and the others with a strange expression. Now that Master has entered the evil fiend battlefield, the heavenly eye race should be the ones worrying. What are you guys being flustered for? Lu Yun, Yu Lan, and the others were so angry that they wanted to laugh. This disciple of his is really way too naive. Lu Yun sighed inwardly and shook his head. He was no longer in the mood to blame Bai Ming-Xue. Yu Lan said, Brother Su can't be blamed for this. It was only because Xueqi and the others were injured and nearly died that Brother Su decided to fight alone. At the mention of that, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others felt ashamed. Lin Xueqi lowered her head in silence with a worried expression as well. Even if he wants to go to the evil fiend battlefield, he should have discussed it with us. Lu Yun said, furthermore, he expended a lot of energy healing Xueqi before entering the evil fiend battlefield without resting. Isn't that way too rash? Yu Lan said, Brother Su has the blessed heaven world badge on him. If he's alert enough, he should be able to escape unscathed when he sees that the situation is bad. Although that was the case, he was up against a supreme perfected spirit after all. Furthermore, the latter had comprehended astral imprisonment. Even Lin Xueqi almost died. If Xiang Meng wanted to hold back Su Zimo, it would be a dream to think that he could escape alive, let alone unscathed. Right then, Wang Dong seemed to have thought of something and his face turned pale. He said with a trembling voice, there isn't any battle merits on Peak Master Su's blessed heaven world badge. What? Lu Yun, Yu Lan and the others' hearts sank to rock bottom when they heard that. Su Zimo originally had 20 battle merits on his blessed heaven world badge. Before he left, he transferred 10 of them to Lin Xueqi. After that, he left the evil fiend battlefield and spent 10 battle merits. In other words, Su Zimo's blessed heaven world badge had no battle merits at all. If he wanted to use the blessed heaven world badge to leave the evil fiend battlefield, he had to obtain 10 battle merits. It was over. Even that last sliver of hope that he could escape was now gone. Go! Lu Yun could not stay any longer and said in a low voice, quick, let's go to the blessed heaven world square together and see if we can get him out. Everyone from the sword world moved hurriedly and sped towards the blessed pavilion. King Cold Eye chuckled and said leisurely, Brother Lu, don't be anxious. Wait for me. Let's go take a look together. Who knows, we might be able to witness the battle of a century. Everyone from the heavenly eye race chased after them. The living beings of the 10,000 races who were initially watching here would naturally not miss a chance to watch a show at the side of the blessed pavilion. As such, they followed behind in a flurry. Before long, everyone from the sword world arrived at the entrance of the blessed pavilion. Lu Yun had already prepared himself for the worst outcome. Taking a deep breath, he entered the blessed pavilion first and turned right, heading straight for the blessed heaven world square. Before long, everyone from the sword world and heavenly eye world arrived in the blessed heaven world square one after another. At that moment, the blessed heaven world square was a little quiet and the atmosphere was strange. However, everyone from the sword world was worried and did not notice anything unusual. When the perfected spirits in the square saw the sword world and heavenly eye world charging in, they revealed strange expressions. Some were wary, some shocked and some sympathetic. Look, the people of the sword world are here. The heavenly eye world is here as well. This is going to be interesting. Everyone whispered. Lu Yun still had a sliver of hope as he searched around the blessed heaven world square. Only after he did not find any traces of Su Zimo did he raise his voice and asked, Fellow Taoists, may I ask which area of the evil fiend battlefield is the peak master of the 9th sword peak of the sword world in? I'm here. Right then, the third gigantic screen split open and a figure walked out. He had black hair, green robes and refined features. It was Su Zimo. Everyone from the sword world was overjoyed when they saw that Su Zimo was fine. A huge rock in their hearts was finally lifted. The moment Su Zimo descended, everyone from the sword world swarmed forward. Brother Su, you're way too rash. Why didn't you tell us that you were entering the evil fiend battlefield? That's right, we were really scared to death just now. If anything happens to you, how are we going to explain ourselves when we return to the Sword World? We can understand that you want to take revenge for Xueqi and the others and regain face for the Sword World. However, there's no need for you to take the risk yourself and face the Heavenly Eye World alone. That's right. It's fine if our Sword World suffers a little this time round. As long as you guys are fine, there's still a long way to go. The 4 Peak Masters complained the moment they arrived with a blaming tone. Although Xueqi was fine, the few of them felt a lingering fear. Upon hearing the words of the Peak Masters of the Sword World, the living beings in the Blessed Heaven World Square were dumbfounded and confused. What nonsense were the Peak Masters of the Sword World spouting? Risking himself. Which part of him was at risk? That person entered the evil fiend battlefield and flew fearlessly in midair, leaving groups of evil fiends and sin spirits behind. In a few breaths, he killed Xiangmeng and the others. How did he look like he was taking a risk? Furthermore, how did the Sword World suffer a loss? Didn't they just have a few injured perfected immortals? The Heavenly Eye race was the one who truly suffered a major loss. Not only were their supreme perfected spirit dead, they were completely wiped out. The 4 Peak Masters spoke one after another, and Xueqi did not have the chance to explain. However, the expressions of everyone from the Heavenly Eye race at the side darkened gradually, feeling disappointed. The scene before them was completely different from what they had imagined. King Cold Eye harumphed coldly. I thought that the Peak Master of the 9th Sword Peak of the Sword World would be an impressive figure. So, he merely took a spin in the evil fiend battlefield before heading out. King Cold Eye was not wrong. Indeed, Xueqi had not stayed in the evil fiend battlefield for long. After he killed Xiangmeng and the others, he cleaned up the battlefield and headed to the cave they were in previously for a quick look before heading out. King Cold Eye glared at Xueqi, wanting to provoke him once more. He sneered, "If you have the guts, why didn't you dare to meet my clansmen of the Heavenly Eye race for a huge battle? Fufu, I guess that's all there is to a Peak Master of the Sword World." In the opinion of King Cold Eye and the others, there was only one possibility for Xueqi to survive the evil fiend battlefield. He did not encounter Xiangmeng at all. Otherwise, Xiangmeng would not have let him leave alive. Chapter 2805. Chapter 2805. Meant to kill. Chapter 2805. Meant to kill. Swish, swish, swish. After King Cold Eye said that, countless gazes landed on his face in the Blessed Heaven World Square. Dragon World, Parasol Tree World, Tomb World, Light World, Barbarian World, Golden Crow World, Giant World. The perfected spirits of the various worlds looked at King Cold Eye as though they were looking at an idiot. You're referring to Xiangmeng and the others, right? Xueqi said indifferently, we met, but I guess we didn't really have a huge battle. Xueqi said it casually, but Lu Yun and the others were alarmed. He had actually met Xiangmeng and the others. It was truly fortunate that he could escape unscathed under such circumstances. Oh! King Cold Eye did not believe it at all and sneered. You came back alive after encountering Xiangmeng? You're really spouting nonsense. Do you think I'll believe such a low-level lie? Splash! Xueqi did not explain. He merely took out 10 Blessed Heaven World badges that were still stained with blood from his storage bag, and threw them casually in front of King Cold Eye and the others. Well! Many Heavenly Eye race beings were shocked and their eyes widened in disbelief. King Cold Eye reached out and grabbed one of the Blessed Heaven World badges. The name written on the front was Xiangmeng. As for the battle merits on the back, they were already empty. That was indeed Xiangmeng's Blessed Heaven World badge and there was no mistake about it. How was that possible? King Cold Eye raised his head abruptly and glared fixedly at Xueqi, asking coldly, Tell me, why are the Blessed Heaven World badges of Xiangmeng and the others with you? Unless Xiangmeng and the others encountered a major calamity, it was impossible for the Blessed Heaven World badges that were hung at all times to fall into the hands of others. However, King Cold Eye did not believe it. Xiangmeng was a supreme perfected spirit. Who could kill him? Furthermore, he had the Blessed Heaven World badge. Even if he encountered experts like the 10 great evil fiends in the evil fiend battlefield, He could use the blessed Heaven World badge to escape. How could they be completely wiped out? Lu Yun and the others looked at Su Zimo beside them with bewildered expressions and puzzled hearts, not knowing what was going on. I don't only have their badges, but these things as well. As Su Zimo said that, he took out 10 round and bloodshot pearls from his storage bag and had them float above his palm. Some of the 10 pearls were perfectly preserved and some were filled with cracks, emitting different dermic Dao auras. Everyone present could clearly see that the 10 blood pearls were the most important item of the Heavenly Eye race, the Heavenly Eye. As for one of the Heavenly Eyes that was completely preserved, the dermic Dao aura it emitted was related to time and space. If he was not wrong, it was Xiang Meng's Heavenly Eye. Pest! Everyone from the sword world gasped and looked at Su Zimo as though they had seen a ghost. Only Bai Ming Xue had a calm expression, as though she was not surprised. The moment King Cold Eye and the other Heavenly Eye race beings saw the 10 Heavenly Eyes, they shuddered as though they were struck by lightning. If it was just the 10 blessed Heaven World badges, there could still be a chance of survival for Xiang Meng and the others. However, those 10 Heavenly Eyes were enough to prove that Xiang Meng and the others were already dead. Su Zimo retracted his palm and put the 10 Heavenly Eyes back into his storage bag. He looked at King Cold Eye and the others and said indifferently, I've returned those 10 blessed Heaven World badges. These 10 Heavenly Eyes are still useful, so I'll accept them. Those words were completely meant to kill. Lu Yun and the others were secretly delighted and suddenly felt proud. King Cold Eye had mocked and provoked them for a long time, but his words were not as lethal as Su Zimo's single reply. You! King Cold Eye was so angry that he almost spat out blood. His eyes were bloodshot and the Heavenly Eye erected on his glabella could not control itself, wanting to open and kill. However, before long, he felt a strong sense of danger. It was a warning from the rules of the blessed Heaven World. If he attacked here, he would be killed by the rules of the blessed Heaven World very quickly. King Cold Eye took in deep breaths continuously and tried his best to calm the anger and killing intent in his heart. He merely glared at Su Zimo, wishing he could tear the latter into pieces. When the living beings who had followed them from outside saw that, they were stunned on the spot with shocked expressions. Xiang Meng, the supreme perfected spirit on the battle merits Jade Steel and a top expert who had comprehended astral imprisonment, died in the evil fiend battlefield just like that. King Cold Eye turned his head slowly and his gaze landed on the battle merits Jade Steel not far away. Indeed. Xiang Meng's name had already disappeared from the battle merits Jade Steel. On the 36th row, Su Zhu's name was written. After killing Xiang Meng and the others, not only did Su Zimo take back the 1,000 battle merits of Lin Xuanzhen's Blessed Heaven World badge, the battle merits of Xiang Meng and the others were also taken by Su Zimo. In just one battle, he ascended to the battle merits Jade Steel. Under normal circumstances, it would take a relatively long time to accumulate battle merits by killing the evil fiends and sin spirits continuously in the evil fiend battlefield. In fact, some supreme perfected spirits only manage to advance to the battle merits Jade Steel by entering the evil fiend battlefield dozens of times to accumulate battle merits over multiple occasions. One could kill supreme perfected spirits on the battle merits Jade Steel and take their battle merits for themselves to increase their rankings. Of course, this method of obtaining battle merits was faster, but it was unrealistic. After all, almost all those who could leave their names on the battle merits Jade Steel were supreme perfected spirits. Even if they could win against a supreme perfected spirit, it was difficult for them to kill one another. Furthermore, they had the blessed Heaven World badges with them. If they saw that the situation was bad, they could withdraw at any time. To think that many living beings in the blessed Heaven World Square today would be lucky enough to witness a new expert step on the corpses of supreme perfected spirits and charge his way into the battle merits Jade Steel. King Cold Eye was still unwilling to believe it. How was that possible? Xiang Meng was a supreme perfected spirit. How could the 10 of them die in the hands of a perfected immortal at the celestial being realm? That was absolutely impossible. Something must have happened in between. Could the 10 great evil fiends have appeared to surround Xiang Meng and the others? With that, Su Zhu took advantage of the situation. That speculation was full of flaws. However, it was easier for him to accept it than Xiang Meng and the others being killed by a celestial being perfected immortal. Even the people of the Sword World could not believe it, let alone King Cold Eye and the other Heavenly Eye race beings. Although Lu Yun, Yu Lan and the other Peak Masters knew that Su Zimo had the Green Lotus body, they did not know that Su Zimo's combat strength could reach such a level. Could it be that he was only able to kill Xiang Meng and the others after releasing the Creation Green Lotus bloodline? Was the bloodline of the Creation Green Lotus so strong that it could allow him to cross 2 minor cultivation realms and kill a supreme perfected spirit? However, from the looks of the other living beings, it seemed like he had not exposed the secret of the Green Lotus bloodline. So, what happened just now? If even the 4 Peak Masters were like that and were letting their imaginations run wild, Lin Xuanzhen, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu, Shen Yu and the other number 1 perfected immortals of the various sword peaks felt even more conflicted. Could Peak Master Su Zhu really be so powerful? The 8 of them could not help but recall everything that happened in the Evil Fiend battlefield. Peak Master Su Zhu's senses were extremely sharp and was even above Lin Xuanzhen's. He could sense the tracks of the Rakshasa ghosts a long time in advance. In fact, Peak Master Su Zhu accumulated 10 battle merits without them even noticing. He had even stopped Shen Yu's full-strength attack. It seemed as though Peak Master Su Zhu had revealed some clues to his strength in the Evil Fiend battlefield. However, the 8 of them had preconceived notions and had never truly paid attention to him. Chapter 2806. Chapter 2806. Exchanging Life for Life. Chapter 2806. Exchanging Life for Life. At that thought, Lin Xuanzhen and the others felt even more ashamed. Back then, they were the ones who saw Su Zhu as a burden and sent him away. To think that they would almost suffer the consequences of their actions and make a huge mistake. It's getting late. I'll go to the treasure pagoda to exchange for treasures. As Su Zimo said that, he walked out. After killing 10 people from Xiang Meng's group and including the 1,000 battle merits that Lin Xuanzhen had previously obtained, there were now 5,300 battle merits on Su Zimo's Blessed Heaven World badge. It was more than enough to exchange for that Venus black gold stone. Su Zimo walked towards the treasure pagoda with only Baiming Xue following behind. Everyone from the sword world was still immersed in the scene earlier on with a myriad of thoughts in their minds and could not recover for a moment. King Cold Eye and the other Heavenly Eye race beings glared at Su Zimo fiercely, wishing they could skin him alive. However, this was the Blessed Heaven World after all. Even the Heavenly Eye race did not dare to challenge the rules of the Blessed Heaven World. That was unless they used their lives to exchange for his. Furthermore, only Grotto Heaven experts could use their lives in exchange for Su Zimo's. In the Blessed Heaven World, one would only have a split second to attack a perfected spirit before they would be killed by the rules of the Blessed Heaven World. Only Grotto Heaven Realm experts had that ability. Of course, King Cold Eye knew that this idea was too bold and was equivalent to breaking the tacit understanding between the super-large worlds. It was despicable behavior for an immortal king expert to disregard their status to kill a paragon of another world. That could easily attract crazier revenge from the other party. However, King Cold Eye could not take this lying down. He wanted Su Zhu to die in the Blessed Heaven World today. King Cold Eye looked at Su Zimo's departing figure and suddenly sent a voice transmission to an old man behind him. Frostwood, you don't have much lifespan left, right? Although this old man was also at the Grotto Heaven realm, he was King Cold Eye's servant and had followed him for many years. The old man seemed to have realized something and his eyes darkened. Master, I still have more than 100,000 years remaining. To Grotto Heaven realm kings who had a lifespan of 1,000,000 years, although their lifespan of more than 100,000 years was not long, they had only just entered their twilight years. King Cold Eye said, what Su Zhu of the Sword World did today was not only to kill Xiang Meng and the others. More importantly, he embarrassed my Heavenly Eye world. The old man guessed King Cold Eye's intentions but remained silent. After all, he was a king of the Grotto Heaven realm. Once he attacked in the Blessed Heaven World, it meant that he would definitely die. Unless there was no other choice, who would be willing to die here? King Cold Eye continued, with this lad's talent, he will definitely become an immortal king in the future. If you kill him, it's equivalent to killing a hope for the future of the sword world. It's not a loss for you to exchange your life for his. The old man was silent and felt a chill run down his spine. King Cold Eye could say it so casually because he was not using his own life in exchange. The old man had served him with all his might for hundreds of thousands of years, but in the end, this was the outcome. King Cold-Eye continued, killing this lad is equivalent to making a great contribution to my Heavenly Eye world. I can guarantee that your clansmen will also receive preferential treatment by my side in the future. The old man was not from the Heavenly Eye race. When he heard King Cold-Eye's promise, he finally relented. I understand. The old man had no choice and no way out. Even if he refused to attack, King Cold-Eye would still kill him for disobeying orders after leaving the blessed heaven world. In the eyes of the Heavenly Eye race, the Heavenly Eye race was the absolute royal family and the other races were slaves. King Cold-Eye said, remember, don't have any wishful thinking or hold back. Release your essence spirit secret skill and kill him right away. In the blessed heaven world, no matter the king of any race, their grotto heavens would be restricted and could not be released. Apart from releasing a grotto heaven, the safest way to kill a perfected spirit was to rely on an essence spirit secret skill to crush the other party completely with their major cultivation realm advantage. I got it. The old man replied and hid in the crowd, leaving the blessed heaven world square and chasing after Su Zimo. After Su Zimo left the blessed heaven world square, he headed towards the treasure pagoda. In the evil fiend battlefield, he killed Xiang Meng and the others and cleaned up the battlefield briefly before returning to the cave where the female ape had stayed. With the death of the female ape, if there was no one to take care of the young monkey, it would definitely not live for long. However, after he returned to the cave, he did not see any traces of the young monkey or blood. Perhaps the female ape had already settled the young monkey, or perhaps it was taken away by other sanguine apes. As Su Zimo thought about that, he walked and gradually arrived near the treasure pagoda. Suddenly, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and his spirit perception that had been calm for a long time warned him wildly. A strong sense of danger suddenly descended. Su Zimo, who had walked on the edge of life and death countless times, did not turn back or think. He merely relied on an almost instinctive reaction to teleport with Baiming Shui right away. After reappearing, Su Zimo did not stop at all and executed the 9 palace subtle steps. As though he had crossed countless layers of space, he arrived at the entrance of the treasure pagoda instantly and entered in a flash. After entering the treasure pagoda, the sense of danger vanished instantly. It was only then that Su Zimo turned around. In the distance, the spirit consciousness light between the brows of an old man had yet to dissipate. He was looking in the direction Su Zimo left with widened eyes and a stunned expression, as though he could not believe it. The air was filled with a terrifying essence spirit power. That was an essence spirit attack at the level of an immortal king. The essence spirit attack chased in the direction Su Zimo left in. However, it was blocked by the restrictions of the treasure pagoda and vanished. If Su Zimo had been a step slower, he would have been killed by the old man's essence spirit secret skill. Although Su Zimo was now at the celestial being realm, his essence spirit was actually at the paradise void realm. However, even if he released the 8-tusk divine strength and the power of his essence spirit increased exponentially, he would not be able to break through to the grotto heaven realm and could not defend against the killing power of the essence spirit secret skill of the grotto heaven realm. In reality, the killing power of the essence spirit secret skill arrived instantly and was almost impossible to dodge. The reason why Su Zimo could escape this calamity was entirely because his spirit perception had warned him in advance. In other words, Su Zimo had already teleported away before the old man could release his essence spirit secret skill. It was already too late for the old man to stop. Although the essence spirit secret skill was still chasing after Su Zimo, it was a step too late and was blocked by the restriction of the treasure pagoda. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for an immortal king expert to fail in killing a perfected immortal. As long as he released his massive spirit consciousness and locked onto Su Zimo or used other methods to hold him back, the latter would not be able to escape and would not be able to dodge his essence spirit secret skill. However, this was the blessed heaven world after all. Once he released his spirit consciousness and locked onto Su Zimo, the blessed heaven world would not give him a second chance to attack. Take now for example. After he released his essence spirit secret skill, although he did not manage to kill Su Zimo, he would still be killed mercilessly by the blessed heaven world. That single instant was the difference between life and death. Suddenly, a beam of light descended at a shocking speed. In a flash, it entered the top of the old man's head. The life force in the old man's body decreased and his essence spirit was destroyed, dying on the spot. The next moment, An invisible force lifted the old man's corpse slowly into the air and disappeared. Chapter 2807. Chapter 2807. Complete Failure. Chapter 2807. Complete Failure. In the blessed heaven world square. Unable to hold back his curiosity, Xueqi looked at a few perfected spirits not far away and asked with cupped fists, "Everyone, sorry to disturb you. Fellow Taoists, can you tell us the details of the huge battle between Peak Master Su and Xiangmeng and the others in the evil fiend battlefield earlier?" The perfected spirits looked at Xueqi and the others with strange expressions. Xueqi coughed gently. "We arrived a little late and didn't see the huge battle earlier on, so..." Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others from the Sword World revealed curious and expectant expressions as they looked at the perfected spirits. Even King Cold Eye and the other heavenly eye race beings pricked up their ears. They could not imagine how a celestial being perfected immortal could kill a supreme perfected spirit like Xiangmeng. A perfected spirit on the other side waved it off. "Huge battle? There's nothing like that. It was a one-sided massacre." Another perfected spirit lamented as well. "Your Peak Master Su is a ruthless person. He charged into the crowd with a sword and killed Xiangmeng and the others as though he was chopping vegetables." Ha! Everyone from the Sword World was dumbfounded. This was completely different from what they had imagined. In their opinion, if Peak Master Su entered the evil fiend battlefield alone and encountered Xiangmeng's group of 10, there would definitely be an earth-shaking battle of the century. Why did it sound like child's play from the mouths of these perfected spirits? Even the supreme perfected spirit was chopped up like vegetables under the sword of Peak Master Su. Bullshit! King Cold Eye, who was at the side, could not continue listening and shouted angrily. Xiangmeng was a supreme perfected spirit, but Su Zhu was merely at the celestial being realm. How could he have killed Xiangmeng without any help? That's the truth. The perfected spirit spread his hands and shrugged slightly. The perfected spirits in the square witnessed it with their own eyes. Xiangmeng was killed by that Peak Master of the Sword World with a single slash. A perfected spirit of the dragon race nodded as well. Xiangmeng and the others died in a few breaths. Indeed, there was no huge battle. In just a few breaths, they were all dead. When he heard that, King Cold Eye's heart skipped a beat and he almost could not breathe. Lu Yun, Yulan and the other Peak Masters exchanged glances and could see the shock in each other's eyes. In that case, Su Zimo killed Xiangmeng without even revealing the creation. Green Lotus bloodline. Su Zimo's strength was even more terrifying than they had imagined. The 4 Peak Masters could not help but feel admiration for the old fellows of the Sword World. Those old fellows had good judgment indeed. In order to make Su Zimo stay, they opened up a sword peak for him and made him a Peak Master. He was already this powerful at the celestial being realm. If he was allowed to continue growing, it would be unimaginable. Fu. Right then, King Cold Eye suddenly laughed and became a little crazy. Lu Yun glared at him and mocked. "Why? The early death of a supreme perfected spirit from your heavenly eye race is something that's so joyous for you?" King Cold Eye shook his head and said meaningfully, "I have to admit that your Peak Master of the 9th Sword Peak is indeed an unparalleled paragon. However, as long as one is a paragon, they will definitely be envied by the heavens. There's no guarantee that no calamity will descend." Lu Yun narrowed his eyes slightly. He could vaguely tell that King Cold Eye seemed to be implying something. There seems to be someone missing behind King Cold Eye. Right then, Yulan suddenly said, "This is bad." Lu Yun thought of a possibility and was shocked. At the same time, the expressions of the other 3 Peak Masters changed drastically when they realized that. Without even time to explain, Lu Yun was about to rush out of the blessed Heaven World Square. Right then, a perfected spirit ran in with lingering fear and shouted, "Something happened outside." Lu Yun stopped in his tracks, his heart sinking and his face turning pale. The other 3 Peak Masters had ugly expressions as well. When King Cold Eye heard that voice, the corners of his lips curled up slightly with a smug smile. He looked at Lu Yun and the others and said faintly, "What a pity that you guys are a step too late." "What happened?" someone asked loudly. The perfected spirit glanced in the direction of the heavenly eye race and gulped. Just now, a king of the Heavenly Eye race suddenly attacked the peak master of the 9th sword peak of the sword world. In the end, he missed. Upon hearing those words, King Cold Eye's smile froze on his face. For a moment, he even thought that he had heard wrongly. Lu Yun was still in disbelief and probed. Fellow Taoist, did you just say that the king of the Heavenly Eye world missed? That's right. The perfected spirit nodded. He has already been killed by the rules of the blessed heaven world and his corpse has vanished. King Cold Eye clutched his chest and swayed with a livid expression. As for the 4 peak masters of the sword world, their worries turned into joy and their hearts finally relaxed. Heavenly Eye world is truly way too vicious. Their feud with the sword world will only deepen to the point that it's irreconcilable. That Grotto Heaven Realm expert must have been prepared to die to attack in the blessed heaven world. Even so, the peak master of the sword world was not killed. He's truly lucky. Humph, to think that the Heavenly Eye race would do such a despicable thing. How shameless. The Heavenly Eye world has really suffered a huge loss this time round. Not only did a supreme perfected spirit die, but they even lost a Grotto Heaven king. In the end, they didn't even touch a single hair of the other party. Hearing the discussions around him, King Cold Eye felt his vision turn black and his head spin. The Heavenly Eye world had suffered a huge loss this time round and lost all its face. It could be said to have suffered a crushing defeat. Lu Yun and the others snapped out of their reverie as well. Lu Yun no longer stood on ceremony with the other party and cursed. King Cold Eye, you're truly despicable to the extreme. You actually sent a king of the Heavenly Eye race to kill a perfected immortal of our sword world. King Cold Eye took a few deep breaths before gradually calming down. Yulan said coldly, King Cold Eye, your Heavenly Eye race broke the rules first. Don't blame our sword world for doing the same. Exactly. Feng Su surveyed his surroundings and shouted. The perfected spirits of the various worlds saw this and can bear witness. King Cold Eye said slowly, although I saw him leave, I didn't know what he wanted to do at all. Furthermore, that old thing isn't from my Heavenly Eye race. His actions have nothing to do with my Heavenly Eye race. King Cold Eye knew that he was in the wrong and simply denied everything. This matter would have been fine if Su Zhu was killed. But now, the Heavenly Eye world suffered heavy losses. If he admitted to it and gave the sword world a reason to take revenge, King Cold Eye would not be able to explain himself when he returned to the Heavenly Eye world. Yulan sneered, Heh, your Heavenly Eye race is truly shameless. Lu Yun sneered as well. Cold Eye, it's not so easy for you to wash this off yourself cleanly. Although that king expert wasn't from your Heavenly Eye race, he's from your Heavenly Eye world. That's right. King Cold Eye said, your sword world can take revenge on any other races in my Heavenly Eye world. My Heavenly Eye race will not care. But don't blame this on the Heavenly Eye race. Actually, before King Cold Eye asked the old man to attack, he had already thought of this escape route. However, he had not expected a Grotto Heaven Realm king to fail. Chapter 2808. Chapter 2808. Blood for Blood. Chapter 2808. Blood for Blood. King Cold Eye shamelessly denied it and naturally attracted the whispers of the surrounding perfected spirits. The perfected spirits of the various worlds were wary of the ferocity of the Heavenly Eye race and knew that the latter would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. As such, they did not dare to mock them brazenly. However, there were inevitably some discussions and pointing fingers. King Cold Eye's expression was dark and he no longer had the face to stay. Without saying a word, he turned around and left with the Heavenly Eye race. Afraid that King Cold Eye would do something crazy again, Lu Yun, Yulan and the other Sword World cultivators left hurriedly and headed towards the treasure pagoda. King Cold Eye left the Blessed Heaven World Square without stopping. He left Blessed Island with many Heavenly Eye race beings and headed out of the Blessed Heaven World. King Cold Eye. A Heavenly Eye race being had an indignant expression as he clenched his fists. Are we leaving just like that? I can't take this lying down. That's right. When has our Heavenly Eye race ever suffered such humiliation? In my opinion, we should send a message back right now and ask the #1 perfected spirit of our race, Sigh, to rush over and kill the peak master of the 9th sword peak. King Cold Eye remained silent with a cold expression. After leaving the Blessed Heaven World, King Cold, I said slowly. The 10-day deadline for the group of people from the Sword World to stay in the Blessed Heaven World is approaching. They will leave this place soon. Even if we get Xueqi to come over now, it'll be too late. We'll have made a wasted trip. Another heavenly eye race being said hatefully. King Cold Eye, are we just going to let it go like that? Of course not. King Cold Eye's gaze was sinister as he said in a deep voice. Remember, the blood of our heavenly eye race will definitely not flow in vain. One day, our heavenly eye race will make those people from the Sword World pay the price and make Xueqi pay with his blood. With that said, King Cold Eye casually tore through the void and led everyone from the heavenly eye race into the spatial tunnel, disappearing from the Blessed Heaven World. On the first floor of the Treasure Pagoda. When everyone from the Sword World found Xueqi, he had just exchanged for the Venus Black Gold Stone with the battle merits in the Blessed Heaven World badge. Brother Xueqi, an immortal king expert of the Heavenly Eye World attacked you just now. Are you all right? Lu Yun asked. They'll be fine. Xueqi smiled and did not say anything more. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had encountered countless life and death crises. The previous one was only one of them and was nothing to him. However, the more he did not say anything, the more unfathomable he looked in the eyes of everyone in the Sword World. It was fine for Lu Yun, Yulan and the other peak masters. After all, they knew a little about Xueqi. As for Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the others, the way they looked at Xueqi had long changed. In a few breaths, he killed the supreme perfected spirit and the others as though he was chopping vegetables. Even against the full-strength attack of an immortal king expert, he escaped unscathed. In the eyes of everyone, such a battle record was an unimaginable miracle. In the beginning, although they were rather respectful and polite to Xueqi, deep down, they did not acknowledge this outsider. But now, the few of them not only looked at Xueqi with respect, there was even a hint of admiration. On the other hand, Lin Xuanjin's expression was normal. However, curiosity flashed through her eyes occasionally. Peak Master Xueqi. Shan Yu had a bashful expression. However, he still went forward and bowed deeply to Xueqi. Previously, in the evil fiend battlefield, I was naive and offended you. Please forgive me, Peak Master Xueqi. Nothing much. Xueqi waved it off and said indifferently, I was at fault for that as well. It would have been fine if I insisted on staying by your side. That way, you guys would have been fine as well. At the mention of that, Shen Yu and the others felt even more ashamed. Xueqi turned and inadvertently met Lin Xuanjin's gaze. Pausing for a moment, he asked, How do you feel? Are you feeling better? Lin Xuanjin nodded slightly and bowed. Thank you for saving my life, Peak Master. Pausing for a moment, she recalled everything that happened in the cave and said in a low voice in shame, Peak Master Xueqi, previously I... Forget it. Xueqi smiled indifferently and interrupted her. He took out a Blessed Heaven World badge from his storage bag and handed it to Lin Xuanjin. This is yours. Lin Xuanjin received it and took a look. Her name was written on one side of the badge. Initially, she was hunted by Xiang Meng and her Blessed Heaven World badge was snatched away by him. Now that it was taken back by Xueqi, he returned it to its rightful owner. Lin Xuanjin glanced at the back of the Blessed Heaven World badge and saw that there were 1,000 battle merits. After her Blessed Heaven World badge was snatched away by Xiang Meng, the battle merits on it were also taken away by him. The 1,000 battle merits on it right now were clearly transferred by Xueqi later on. Peak Master, these battle merits. The moment Lin Xuanjin spoke, Xueqi said, The 1,000 battle merits there are yours to begin with. As for how many battle merits the rest of you have, I'm not sure. You guys will have to distribute them among yourselves. Lin Xuanjin said hurriedly, I can't accept these battle merits. That's right, Peak Master Xueqi. Our battle merits were already snatched away by Xiang Meng in the evil fiend battlefield. Wang Dong added. There's no need to decline. Xueqi said, You guys risked your lives to come to the evil fiend battlefield for the sake of Sword Burial Peak. Now that I've obtained the Venus Black Gold Stone, I naturally have to return the 1,000 battle merits to you guys. Take them. Yulan nodded slightly and said with a smile, Brother Xueqi is a peak master after all. Why would he take advantage of you? All of you can distribute these battle merits and see what you need. You can exchange them in the treasure pagoda. When her master said that, Lin Xuanjin could no longer decline. She only took a deep look at Su Zimo before distributing the battle merits in the Blessed Heaven World badge to Wang Dong and the others. Su Zimo said, I'll go to the second floor of the treasure pagoda to see if there are any other treasure. Originally, he had more than 5,300 battle merits on his Blessed Heaven World badge. In exchange for the Venus Black Gold Stone, he spent 1,000 battle merits and gave another 1,000 to Lin Xuanjin and the others. He still had more than 3,000 battle merits left. When they came to the treasure pagoda 9 days ago, time was tight and everyone only took a look at the first floor. Now that there was still half a day left, he could take a look at the higher floors. Everyone from the Su Zimo followed Su Zimo up to the second floor of the treasure pagoda. After entering the second floor, there were clearly fewer living beings of the various races in the hall. After all, it was difficult for most perfected spirits to obtain more than 1,000 battle merits. It was useless even if they reached the second floor. The treasures in the second floor of the treasure pagoda required at least 1,000 battle merits and the upper limit was 2,000. The number of treasures on the second floor of the treasure pagoda did not decrease at all. There was a dazzling array of immortal pills, divine weapons, universal treasures, cultivation techniques, secret skills and immortal ores. Furthermore, the treasures on the second floor were clearly even more precious and rare than the first. In fact, Su Zimo even saw some immortal pills that had been lost in the ancient era and many precious immortal herbs on the second floor of the treasure pagoda. Some immortal herbs and trees had only appeared in a certain era in the past and were long extinct now. To think that they would appear once more in the treasure pagoda. Chapter 2809. Chapter 2809. Relic. Chapter 2809. Relic. 9 Heavens Dragon Lotus. At the end of the second floor of the treasure pagoda, Su Zimo stopped in front of a treasure chest and looked at a lotus flower in it with a tempted expression. Even his green lotus bloodline was tempted. Back when he was in the battle kingdom of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain, Immortal Queen Ling Long had mentioned this lotus flower to him. The 9 Heavens Dragon Lotus was a lotus flower that grew in the 9 Heavens era. According to the records of many ancient books, the 9 Heavens era might be the oldest era since the present. The great emperor of that generation was Great Empress 9 Heavens Mystic Maiden, who created the technique reserve. Back then, Immortal Queen Ling Long had seen records of the 9 Heavens Dragon Lotus in Great Empress 9 Heavens Mystic Maiden's inheritance ground. Countless eras and hundreds of millions of years had passed since the 9 Heavens era. All living beings of that era had long perished after countless eras and rarely left any traces. To think that he would see a relatively complete 9 Heavens Dragon Lotus on the second floor of the treasure pagoda. Although the 9 Heavens Dragon Lotus was already withered, it was definitely a great tonic for the Green Lotus true body. Legend has it that when a living 9 Heavens Dragon Lotus bloomed, a divine dragon would even be born in the center of the lotus flower. Su Zimo's gaze landed on the battle merits required on the treasure chest. 2,000 points. The 9 Heavens Dragon Lotus could be considered as one of the most precious and rare treasures on the second floor of the treasure pagoda. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and did not exchange for it immediately. Instead, he continued heading towards the third floor of the treasure pagoda. The treasures on the third floor still covered a large area, be it spirit pills, medicine or universal treasures. Furthermore, on the third floor of the treasure pagoda, Su Zimo saw even more spirit items that were originally extinct in the past eras. There was a 9 Nether orchid that only grew in the 9 Nether era but was still alive. Of course, this precious plant required a lot of battle merits. Along the way, everyone from the sword world exclaimed from time to time. This was the first time many of them had come to the third floor of the treasure pagoda. There were many treasures that even the 4 peak masters had never heard of. Su Zimo walked forward and looked at the rare treasures one after another. It was no exaggeration to say that the treasures inside were incomparably precious and some of them even tempted him. However, so far, he had yet to find what he needed. After cultivating to the perfected 1 realm, apart from cultivation resources like essence spirit stones, the most important thing for cultivators was to comprehend the heaven and earth and Dharmic Tao. Many perfected spirits often had sufficient cultivation resources, and the true essence in their bodies had long been accumulated to its peak. However, they could not comprehend the mysteries of their realms and could only be stuck at a bottleneck, unable to advance an inch. This was especially true for the last two realms of the perfected One realm, Hollow Nether and Paradise Void. They had extremely high requirements for cultivators to comprehend the Tao. Up till now, Xueqi had already mastered two peerless divine powers, the Immortal Vanquishing Sword and the Eight-Tusked Divine Strength. However, in reality, he still had a few divine powers that had been cultivated to the level of quasi-peerless divine powers. For some peerless divine powers, such as Fleeting Moment, 6 Paths of Reincarnation and 4 Heads 8 Arms, with his talent and opportunities, there was a high chance of him comprehending them given time and continuous accumulation. However, there were some peerless divine powers and even dermic daos that he could not do anything about. That included the 3 secret skills within the Taboo Mystic Classic, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. Up till now, he had only comprehended the dermic Tao of impermanence. There were still 2 other dermic daos, No Self and Silent Nirvana, that he could not comprehend at all. If he could comprehend the Buddhist dermic daos to the extreme and synthesize the secret skills of the dragon and elephant races, he could raise the Buddha dragon elephant to the level of a peerless divine power. Every single peerless divine power comprehended would cause a qualitative leap and improvement for cultivators. When a cultivator comprehended a peerless divine power, the power of that peerless divine power would descend to cleanse and temper their bodies, bloodlines and essence spirits, giving them a complete transformation. At the same time, after comprehending a peerless divine power and fusing the dermic Tao into the Tao fruit, the cultivator's Tao fruit would become even stronger and their cultivation would increase exponentially. The stronger the Tao fruit, the stronger the grotto heaven condensed in the future. Xueqi searched as he watched. Finally, his eyes lit up. He took a few quick steps and arrived in front of a treasure chest. Inside the treasure chest was a stone the size of a baby's fist. It was golden and round, crystal clear without any impurities and emitted a faint golden light. It was the relic of an arhat. Furthermore, this was the relic of a supreme arhat. In the Buddhist monasteries, perfected One realm cultivators were called arhats. The Tao fruit of an arhat was a relic. To Xueqi, the most direct way to continue comprehending the dermic Tao of the Buddhist monasteries was to find the relic of an arhat. Through observing the relics and comprehending the dermic Tao of the Buddhist monasteries inside to verify what he had learned, he might be able to gain some insights. Among all the relics of arhats, the relic of a supreme arhat was undoubtedly the most precious. That was because the relic of a supreme arhat definitely contained a peerless divine power. The peerless divine power of the Buddhist monasteries was the Buddha dragon elephant. That would be of the greatest help to Xueqi. The relic of a supreme arhat. Right then, Lu Yun walked over and murmured when he saw the relic. Without hesitation, Xueqi placed the Blessed Heaven World badge in the groove on the treasure chest and spent a total of 3,000 battle merits to exchange for the supreme arhat's relic. What a pity! Xueqi frowned slightly. Upon closer inspection, he realized that there were 2 fine cracks on the relic. A crack in the Tao fruit meant that the dermic Tao contained within might be incomplete and would affect the comprehension of cultivators. Lu Yun said actually, there are some perfectly preserved and flawless Tao fruits of supreme perfected spirits on the 5th floor of the treasure pagoda. However, each of the perfectly preserved supreme perfected spirit Tao fruits requires 5,000 battle merits. So much! Xueqi was secretly speechless. Actually, the most important thing when exchanging for the Tao fruit of a supreme perfected spirit is to comprehend the peerless divine power within. Lu Yun said, however, in reality, even if you obtain the Tao fruit of a supreme perfected spirit, you might not be able to comprehend the peerless divine power within. Xueqi nodded. In order to comprehend a peerless divine power, one required talent, opportunity, luck, timing, accumulation, opportunity, karma and other factors. There could not be anything less. If anyone could comprehend peerless divine powers with just the Tao fruits of supreme perfected spirits, there would have been supreme perfected spirits everywhere long ago. Lu Yun continued, the reason why this supreme arhat's Tao fruit is placed on the 3rd floor of the treasure pagoda is because it's flawed. Even though there's just 2 tiny cracks, that's a full 2,000 battle merits difference. On the 5th floor of the treasure pagoda, not only are there Tao fruits of supreme perfected spirits, there are even 9 tribulation spirit treasures. Every single 9 tribulation spirit treasure requires 5,000 battle merits as well. Chapter 2810. Chapter 2810. Tao Guidance. Chapter 2810. Tao Guidance. After exchanging for the Supreme Arhut Relic, Su Zimo did not have much battle merits left and was only left with around 300. He returned to the first floor of the treasure pagoda and spent another 100-odd battle merits to exchange for a Tao fruit of an ordinary perfected spirit of the elephant race. Apart from Buddhism and the Dharmic Tao of the dragon race, one had to try their best to comprehend the divine powers and secret skills of the elephant race if they wanted to comprehend the Buddha dragon elephant. As for Su Zimo's Dharmic Tao in the elephant race, it came from the divine elephant breathing technique and innate divine powers. It was slightly weak, and that was why he exchanged for the Tao fruit of a perfected spirit of the elephant race. As for Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong and the others, they only walked around the treasure pagoda and did not exchange for anything. The few of them had the same thoughts. They would keep the battle merits this time round and come to the Blessed Heaven world the next time to exchange for better treasures after accumulating more battle merits. Everyone stored their Blessed Heaven world badges in the Blessed Heaven world before leaving Blessed Island, heading out of the Blessed Heaven world. Although Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong and the others did not exchange for any treasures during this trip to the Blessed Heaven world, they felt that their Dharmic Tao had become more profound and their combat strength had increased after a few days of fighting in the evil fiend battlefield with the baptism of blood. After Lin Xuanjin narrowly escaped death, her comprehension of the immortal vanquishing sword increased by another level and was just lacking a flash of inspiration. Of course, Su Zimo was the one who benefited the most among the few of them. It was not merely the Supreme Arhut Relic and Tao fruit of the elephant race from the treasure pagoda. There were also the 10 heavenly eyes of the heavenly eye race. Among them, Xiang Meng's heavenly eye contained a peerless divine power. If Su Zimo could comprehend all 10 heavenly eyes, the Supreme Arhut Relic and the Dharmic Tao of the elephant race perfected spirit's Tao fruit, there was a high chance that he would advance further and enter the hollow nether realm. After leaving the blessed heaven world, Lu Yun summoned his immortal boat to carry everyone. He broke through the void and they prepared to head back to the sword world. Su Zimo looked at the blessed heaven world behind him in deep thought. The blessed heaven world was unfathomable, as though it was shrouded in a layer of fog that could not be penetrated. The 10-day deadline was over. If he wanted to come to the blessed heaven world again, he could only wait for 1,000 years. On the immortal boat, Lu Yun seemed to have read Su Zimo's mind and said seriously, "Brother Su, it's best if you don't come here before your cultivation reaches the paradise void realm." "Why do you say that?" Su Zimo asked. Lu Yun said, "In the battle of the 7-star sword world, we became enemies with the heavenly eye race. In today's battle, you killed the supreme perfected spirit, Xiang Meng. The heavenly eye world even lost a king. Given the vengeful nature of the heavenly eye race, they will definitely not let the matter rest. Previously in the blessed heaven world, King Cold Eye even sacrificed a king in exchange for your life. Who knows what crazy actions he will do in the future?" Yulan nodded as well. "That's right. Furthermore, the number 1 perfected spirit of the heavenly eye race, Xia, is far stronger than Xiang Meng. According to what I know, Xia might have comprehended 2 peerless divine powers. After comprehending a peerless divine power, one could be called a supreme perfected spirit and leave their name on the battle merits jade steel. If Xia comprehended 2 peerless divine powers, it was obvious how strong he was." Su Zimo nodded. "It's no wonder why he's rank 1 on the battle merits jade steel. He's indeed capable." Although Su Zimo seemed to be praising him, his tone was nonchalant, as though he was taking it casually. When Yulan saw that Su Zimo did not seem to take it to heart, she reminded, "Furthermore, the peerless divine power that Xia comprehended is the 6 paths of reincarnation. There were not many peerless divine powers, and up till now, only about a dozen or so were made known to everyone. The power of every peerless divine power manifested differently. For example, astral imprisonment did not have much killing power and was meant to restrict the movements of the other party. As for 6 paths of reincarnation, it was definitely one of the strongest killing power among the many peerless divine powers." "Oh." Su Zimo raised his brow slightly. It had been countless years since anyone could comprehend the 6 paths of reincarnation to the extreme and reach the level of a peerless divine power. He was indeed surprised that Xia could control the 6 paths of reincarnation. When Yulan saw that Su Zimo seemed to take it seriously, she explained, "Xia was born with a pair of yin-yang eyes. It's said that during one of his Tao comprehension sessions, He opened his yin-yang eyes by chance and accidentally broke through the barrier between yin and yang. He caught a glimpse of the outline of the 6 paths of reincarnation in the netherworld. Then he shouldn't have seen it as clearly as I did. Su Zimo murmured softly. What did you say? Yulan did not hear Su Zimo's muttering and asked instinctively. Nothing much. Su Zimo did not explain either. Xia had only caught a glimpse of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Back then, he was truly in the netherworld and stood in front of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Lu Yun said, no matter what, since we've already obtained the Venus Black Gold Stone, let's not go to the blessed heaven world for the time being. Su Zimo did not comment. The danger Lu Yun and the others were worried about was only one of them. However, Su Zimo was worried about something else. To him, the safest place was naturally the Sword World. There were more than 10 emperors presiding over the Sword World. Any danger would naturally be eliminated instantly. However, there were indeed many treasures in the Blessed Pavilion that tempted him. If he wanted to exchange for those treasures, he still had to wait for a suitable opportunity. On the return journey, everyone from the Sword World either gathered together to chat or cultivated alone in their rooms. Su Zimo belonged to the latter. One day, he was comprehending the dermic Tao of a heavenly eye when footsteps sounded from outside. The person hesitated for a long time before knocking gently on the door. Peak Master Su. I'm Lin Xuanjin. I wish to meet you. Come in. Su Zimo replied. Lin Xuanjin pushed the door open and entered. When she arrived in front of Su Zimo, she bowed respectfully before saying, Peak Master, I heard that you have long comprehended the immortal vanquishing sword. I would like to seek your guidance. All right. Su Zimo smiled and agreed without hesitation. If this was in the past, given Lin Xuanjin's pride, she would definitely not ask Su Zimo, a perfected immortal at the celestial being realm. But now that Su Zimo had saved her life and displayed incomparably powerful strength in the evil fiend battlefield, the former #1 perfected immortal of the Sword World finally put down her pride and came to ask. Su Zimo extended his palm and with a thought, 3 sword chi appeared in his palm. They surged with killing intent. The origin of the peerless divine power, the immortal vanquishing sword, originates from a mystical book. The 3 sentences in it are the essence of the immortal vanquishing sword. As the saying goes, when the heaven's killing intent is released. The reason why Su Zimo could comprehend the immortal vanquishing sword so quickly was not only because of his talent and comprehension of the sword Tao. It was also because he possessed the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra. With the dermic Tao in that mystical book, he could compare it against the 3 sentences of the immortal vanquishing sword and everything naturally came to fruition. Su Zimo dissected the dermic Tao of the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra and displayed it in the form of the sword Tao in front of Lin Xuanjin. He fused it into the 3 great sword arts and finally formed the immortal vanquishing sword. Lin Xuanjin watched the entire process and the light in her eyes intensified. Finally, at a certain moment, a thought flashed through her mind. As though she was enlightened, all the bottlenecks and questions were resolved. Chapter 2811. Chapter 2811. Hollow Nether Realm. Chapter 2811. Hollow Nether Realm. Lin Xuanjin closed her eyes and the killing intent in her body gathered continuously, becoming purer and more condensed. A blood-colored sword appeared behind her and materialized, turning more corporeal. The terrifying power of a peerless divine power descended on her body and began to cleanse her body and bloodline. Success! Su Zimo looked at the woman before him and nodded slightly. Lin Xuanjin was indeed very talented in the sword Tao. With just a little guidance, she comprehended the key and the true meaning of the immortal vanquishing sword. Although Lin Xuanjin was not his disciple, he did not hold back in imparting the Tao this time round. From today onwards, the sword world would have another supreme perfected spirit. The commotion in the room instantly alarmed Lu Yun, Yulan and the other peak masters. The 4 of them arrived outside Su Zimo's room immediately. It seems like Lin Xuanjin has already comprehended the immortal vanquishing sword. This is great timing. We can stand guard for her here. In my opinion, there's no need for us to appear. Didn't you notice whose room Lin Xuanjin is in? All these years, Xuanjin has always lacked a Tao companion. Brother Su is indeed rather good. There's a difference in seniority. It's fine as long as they're about the same age. The four peak masters gradually left and their voices slowly vanished. Su Zimo had a calm expression as he closed his eyes to rest. Opposite him, Lin Xuanjin's bloodline and body were baptized by the divine power of the immortal vanquishing sword. Perhaps because it was too violent, an abnormal blush suddenly appeared on her face. The entire process lasted for half a day before Lin Xuanjin gradually recovered. Although her cultivation realm was still at the Paradise Void realm and did not increase much, it looked like her essence, chi and spirit had more than doubled. After the baptism of the peerless divine power, her combat strength had also increased by a level. Thank you for your guidance, Peak Master. Lin Xuanjin bowed once more towards Su Zimo. There's no need for formalities. Su Zimo nodded slightly and smiled. Lin Xuanjin stood on the spot and seemed to have thought of something. She wanted to say something but hesitated. Is there anything else? Su Zimo asked. Lin Xuanjin pondered for a moment and asked in a seemingly casual manner, Peak Master, do you know anything about the Sever Sword Dao I cultivate? I roughly know a little. Su Zimo nodded. It's to use the heart of the sword to sever the 7 emotions and 6 desires so that one is separate from the secular realm. That way, one can reach a realm that was aloof from worldly affairs and is unattached to all things external. Lin Xuanjin nodded and added, we don't really sever our 7 emotions and 6 desires by cultivating the Sever Sword Dao. We merely reach a Sever Sword realm where we are not attached to external things. Yes. Su Zimo had a calm expression and lowered his gaze. A trace of disappointment flashed through Lin Xuanjin's eyes before returning to normal. She said in a low voice, Peak Master Su, I'll take my leave. It was only after Lin Xuanjin left that Su Zimo looked up at her back view. Unperturbed, he continued comprehending the Dermic Dao. A few days later, everyone from the sword world finally returned. Su Zimo brought the thousands of sword cultivators who survived from the 7-star sword world back to Sword Burial Peak and placed the Venus Black Gold Stone there at the same time. Sword Burial Peak did not seem any different from before. There were only a few thousand ordinary disciples and a perfected immortal like Meng Hao. They were far inferior to the strength of the other 8 sword peaks. However, ever since everyone from the sword world returned from the Blessed Heaven world, all the sword cultivators could vaguely sense that Sword Burial Peak seemed to be different from before. However, no one knew the reason. As time passed, what happened in the Blessed Heaven world fermented and gradually spread in the sword world. Only then did many sword cultivators realize how terrifying the Peak Master of Sword Burial Peak was. Not only did this matter spread in the sword world, it had even spread to many worlds. Prior to this, only a small number of worlds knew that there was now a 9th Peak Master in the sword peaks of the sword world. After the battle in the Blessed Heaven world, many worlds knew that the Peak Master of the 9th sword peak was a ruthless person. After returning from the Blessed Heaven world, Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, Gong Suanyu and the other top figures of the various sword peaks often went to Sword Burial Peak to listen to Su Zimo's teachings. Even Yun Ting went a few times. Actually, ever since Sword Burial Peak was established, Su Zimo would open a forum to impart the Dermic Dao every once in a while. However, it was extremely deserted at the foot of Sword Burial Peak, and almost no one came to listen to his teachings. Half of the perfected immortals of the various sword peaks had cultivation realms that surpassed Su Zimo. Who would care about his teachings? However, as the news of the battle in the Blessed Heaven world spread, more and more sword cultivators came to listen to the teachings at the forum of Sword Burial Peak. Most importantly, every sword cultivator felt that they had benefited greatly after hearing it. Although Su Zimo's cultivation realm was only at the celestial being realm, he had once received the teachings of Great Emperor Zenith Heaven and possessed many taboo mystic classics. His understanding of the Sword Dao had already far surpassed his peers. Of course, for Su Zimo, the most important thing for the next period of time was to comprehend Dermic Dao and divine powers. In the blink of an eye, 300 years passed. Su Zimo comprehended another peerless divine power, 4 heads 8 arms. This peerless divine power originated from his 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. He had experienced it personally and felt the divine power of 4 heads 8 arms. No one could comprehend this peerless divine power more easily than him. After receiving the baptism of the divine power of 4 heads 8 arms, the bloodline, physique and essence spirit of the Green Lotus true body increased once more and his cultivation realm improved as well. In the 800th year, Xueqi finally comprehended 6 paths of reincarnation. When 6 paths of reincarnation passed through his body as a peerless divine power, his grade 12 creation Green Lotus body almost could not withstand it and collapsed several times before recovering. After 6 consecutive collapses and healing, the Green Lotus true body was reborn and was enveloped by an even more mysterious aura, as though he had already jumped out of reincarnation. In the 1000th year, Xueqi comprehended the supreme Arhat Relic and finally comprehended the profundity of the second secret skill of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. The true meaning of the so-called no-self was to place the self in the state of emptiness, thus reaching the state of no-self. At that point, no dermic arts could taint the body. The comprehension of emptiness within that secret skill corresponded to the hollow nether realm of the perfected One realm. In Xiangmeng's heavenly eye, there was also his comprehension of emptiness and space thanks to astral imprisonment. As a result, Xueqi's cultivation in the celestial being realm increased exponentially. In fact, he had already touched the barrier of the hollow nether realm and could break through at any moment. A short year later, due to his improved attainments in Buddhism and the Dharmic Tao of the dragon and elephant races, Xueqi finally pushed the power of the Buddha dragon elephant to its limits and it reached the level of a peerless divine power. The peerless divine power of the Buddhist Dharma descended and baptized the Green Lotus true body once more. With the help of that divine power, Xueqi broke through the bottleneck and entered the hollow nether realm. Under normal circumstances, no matter how talented and resourceful one was, their cultivation speed would slow down after cultivating to the perfected One realm. For example, Yun Ting had long entered the convergence realm. Even after 1,000 years, he had yet to advance to the celestial being realm. It was the same for Baiming Xue. As for Xueqi, the reason why he could advance to the hollow nether realm in a short 1,000 years was because he comprehended 3 peerless divine powers and a taboo secret skill during that period of time. The descent of the 3 peerless divine powers alone brought about an extremely terrifying change to the Green Lotus true body and increased his cultivation realm. Furthermore, with his comprehension towards emptiness and the huge amount of cultivation resources, it was only normal for Xueqi to advance to the hollow nether realm. Chapter 28:12. Chapter 28:12. Ghost World. Chapter 28:12. Ghost World. 1,000 years had passed and Xueqi could enter the blessed heaven world again. However, the time was not ripe yet. If he rashly headed to the blessed heaven world, there was a high chance that he would encounter a huge danger. Furthermore, that danger did not merely come from the heavenly eye race. For the past 1,000 years, Xueqi would attempt to establish a connection with the martial Tao prime body every once in a while during his cultivation. However, there was no response. It had been 2,000 years since the 2 true bodies separated in the netherworld. There was only one explanation for this situation. The martial Tao prime body had yet to return to the upper world. As the 2 true bodies were in 2 separate worlds and were separated by powerful world barriers, they could not communicate. It had been 2,000 years since the martial Tao prime body followed the void Yaksha into the ghost Tao. However, he could not return to the upper world still and no one knew what happened. According to the void Yaksha, the ghost Tao was also an independent world that was on par with the upper world. However, the ghost Tao was different from the hell Tao. The ghost Tao was flawless and its laws were complete. Not only were there emperor experts, there were even terrifying existences like Brahma Ghost Mother who was very likely a great emperor. Although the martial Tao prime body had stepped into the martial domain realm, he was only at lesser mastery of it. In terms of combat strength, he could suppress all Grotto Heaven realm kings but it was difficult for him to win against quasi-emperor experts. With the Hell Suppression Tripod, Soul Lantern and Netherworld Treasure Mirror, he might be able to fight a quasi-emperor. There were way too many experts in the Ghost Tao who could threaten the martial Tao prime body. Xueqi sighed gently and composed himself once more, continuing to cultivate the Tao. No matter what the martial Tao prime body experienced in the Ghost Tao, he could do nothing and could only leave the martial Tao prime body to deal with it himself. The martial Tao prime body leaped into the Ghost Tao and could not control his body at all. He felt the world spin as though he had fallen into a gigantic vortex and lost his 5 senses instantly. In fact, he could not even sense the passage of time. Only a remnant of his spirit perception allowed him to determine that he was not in any danger. The void yaksha was beside him and curled up with his eyes closed like a baby. The two of them could not communicate verbally or with their spirit consciousnesses. They could only let nature take its course and go with the flow. It was a strange feeling. Relying on his remaining spirit perception, the martial Tao prime body tried his best to sense the outside world. It was as though he was in the long river of time. His vision was not dark but a colorful scene. In this cycle of reincarnation, every single drop of blood in his body and his essence spirit seemed to be stripped out of his body and entered the void. After an unknown period of time, the martial Tao prime body seemed to have penetrated a pool of water. The ubiquitous feeling of being stripped away suddenly vanished. The martial Tao prime body tried his best to control his body, and his five senses gradually recovered. He took a deep breath and opened his eyes abruptly. The surroundings were dark and the world was filled with a cold heaven and earth essence chi that seemed sinister without any light. Of course, that darkness did not affect the eyesight of the martial Tao prime body. The void yaksha at the side gradually recovered as well. He stretched his body and his muscles. He took a look at his surroundings and a hint of excitement flashed through the depths of his eyes. This is the ghost world. The void yaksha was all too familiar with the surrounding environment. The hell world is filled with a large amount of nether chi, and this is the ghost chi in the ghost world. The martial Tao prime body nodded. Be it ghost chi or nether chi, they were based on heaven and earth essence chi. However, the energy inside was different. How long have we been traveling through the 6 paths of reincarnation? The martial Tao prime body frowned and asked, why do I feel like it's been more than 1,000 years? That's possible, of course. The void yaksha said, the path we took to enter the ghost world is through the 6 paths of reincarnation. The 6 paths of reincarnation was originally a path for souls to reincarnate. Living beings with bodies of flesh and blood like us have great resistance when traveling through the 6 paths of reincarnation. It's possible for us to experience hundreds or even thousands of years. The martial Tao prime body pondered in silence. Although they also crossed 2 independent worlds to head to the netherworld from the hell world, the Hell Yellow Springs was connected to the hell world after all. Therefore, at the connecting spot, they broke through the world barrier and crossed the 2 worlds. The netherworld and the ghost Tao were not connected. The 2 of them entered the ghost Tao from the netherworld and walked through the 6 paths of reincarnation. That was why they floated continuously in the cycle of reincarnation, and only descended into the ghost world after an unknown period of time. According to what you said previously, the ghost Tao, hell Tao, Azura Tao and beast Tao are all independent worlds that nurture living beings of different races. In other words, the world you descend upon depends on the passageway you jump into from the entrance of the 6 paths of reincarnation. The martial Tao prime body asked, what are the human Tao and heavenly Tao? Are they also 2 independent worlds? I don't think so. The void yaksha shook his head. I'm not sure about the human Tao and heavenly Tao either. The martial Tao prime body frowned slightly. That was strange. According to the rules of the 6 paths of reincarnation, there should have been 6 independent worlds. However, the human Tao and heavenly Tao were different from the other 4. If the essence of the 6 Taos was the same, what kind of world would the human Tao and heavenly Tao be, and what living beings would be nurtured? Were they just ordinary humans in the human Tao? What was there in the world of the heavenly Tao? The 6 paths of reincarnation seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fog and could not be seen clearly. Netherworld, 6 paths of reincarnation, Nether River. What was their relationship with the trichiliocosm? Or rather, what was their relationship with the major chiliocosm? Just as the martial Tao prime body was deep in thought, the void yaksha seemed to be impatient and urged, let's go. Let's hurry so that we can help you return to the medium chiliocosm. Although the martial Tao prime body remained calm on the surface, he suddenly felt wary. The void yaksha had committed a huge crime in the ghost world and was exiled by the Brahma ghost mother to the Nether River. Now that he had returned to his former home, he should have some reservations. However, not only was the void yaksha not afraid at all, he even revealed a hint of excitement. The yaksha race was not kind to begin with. Back in Bitter Springs Hell, not only was the void yaksha not grateful at all when the martial Tao prime body saved him, he even wanted to kill the martial Tao prime body. In the end, it was only because the martial Tao prime body suppressed the void yaksha forcefully with his powerful strength that the latter submitted. Furthermore, he promised that he would definitely help the martial Tao prime body return to the medium kiliacosm. Later on, after entering the netherworld, the void yaksha followed beside the martial Tao prime body and had always been honest. Only then did the martial Tao prime body gradually lower his guard. Right now, the emotions revealed by the void yaksha inadvertently alarmed the martial Tao prime body once more. The yaksha race was ferocious and cunning. It was not surprising for them to break their promise. The martial Tao prime body did not attack rashly. This was the ghost world and he was way too unfamiliar with it. Since he was already here, there was no way out. He could only try his best to inquire about the situation of the ghost world from the void yaksha, and find a way to return to the medium kiliacosm before adapting to the situation. Chapter 28:13, Chapter 28:13, 9 Nether Abyss. Chapter 28:13, 9 Nether Abyss. The void yaksha observed his surroundings and tore through the void, opening a spatial tunnel. He turned around and said, "Follow me." The martial Tao prime body had a calm expression, as though he did not suspect anything. He took a step forward and followed behind the void yaksha. At that distance, the martial Tao prime body could guarantee that as long as anything happened, he would be able to suppress the void yaksha immediately. "Where are we going?" the martial Tao prime body asked in a seemingly casual manner. "The 9 Nether Abyss." The void yaksha replied. A thought flashed through the mind of the martial Tao prime body. The 9 Nether Abyss. He wondered if the 9 Nether Abyss was related to the former great Empress 9 Nether. Before the martial Tao prime body could ask, the void yaksha explained, the ghost world can roughly be divided into 2 big ghost domains, separated by the 9 Nether Abyss. On one side is our yaksha ghost domain. It's divided into 8 planes and are led by 8 yakshas. These 8 yakshas are Emperor Realm experts and were personally conferred their titles by Lady Ghost Mother. "What title do you have?" the martial Tao prime body asked. The void yaksha smacked his lips. "Although I'm a void yaksha, I haven't cultivated to the Emperor Realm. How can I be qualified to be given a title by Lady Ghost Mother? She only gave me a name, Ugly Slave." Ugly Slave, that name is truly casual. Seems like this void yaksha is truly insignificant to Brahma Ghost Mother. The martial Tao prime body thought to himself. The void yaksha continued, on the other side of the 9 Nether Abyss is the Rakshasa ghost domain. There are 10 planes ruled by 10 female Rakshasas. The expression of the martial Tao prime body changed. Rakshasa ghost domain. Suddenly, the martial Tao prime body asked, "Does the Rakshasa ghost domain belong to the Rakshasa race?" "That's right." The void yaksha nodded. "Indeed." Back when the green lotus true body was in the divine firmament immortal domain, he entered an Azura battlefield to help Xueqi obtain the prince's seal. There, the green lotus true body came into contact with the yaksha race for the first time. The moment he saw the yaksha race, the image of the Rakshasa race appeared in his heart and he had a nagging feeling that the two races were related. To think that the Rakshasa and yaksha races were both from the ghost race and were living beings of the hungry ghost Tao. It was no wonder why some people called them yaksha ghosts and Rakshasa ghosts. In fact, through their names, the origins of the two races had already been revealed. The Rakshasa race was one of the primordial 9 races in Tianhuang mainland. However, there was no world for the Rakshasas in the Trichiliacosm. To think that it was because they were hidden in the hungry ghost Tao, one of the 6 paths. The martial Tao prime body asked again, "The 10 female Rakshasas you mentioned earlier on should be emperor experts as well, right?" "That's right." The void yaksha said, "Of course, there are more than these 18 emperor experts in the 2 ghost domains." As he said that, the void yaksha turned to look at the martial Tao prime body. However, the martial Tao prime body wore a silver mask and there were no emotions revealed. Only his eyes could be seen, but even then, they were as deep as the sea was calm. In reality, the situation in the ghost world indeed made the martial Tao prime body feel troubled. Up till now, he was at lesser mastery of the martial domain realm and was invincible at the grotto heaven realm. Only by summoning the hell suppression tripod and other treasures would he have a chance of fighting a quasi-emperor. Back in the hell world, there were 3 quasi-emperors. Although he killed one by force, He was also injured by the remaining 2 quasi-emperors. His blood stimulated the netherworld treasure mirror and he killed another quasi-emperor, allowing him to subdue the hell world. The battle in the netherworld was a special situation. It was because the damage of the soul lantern to the soul was extremely great. That was why he could rely on the soul lantern to fight against the Emperor Realm experts of the netherworld. However, the situation in the ghost world was completely different from the netherworld and hell world. Firstly, there were many Emperor experts presiding over the ghost world. Secondly, Emperor experts from as the Yaksha and Rakshasa races were protected by their bodies and soul lanterns did not pose much of a threat to them. Perhaps only the netherworld treasure mirror could threaten the Emperor experts of the ghost world. As for the netherworld treasure mirror, it required a large amount of essence blood and was extremely harmful to the martial Tao prime body. It was a method of injuring himself to injure the enemy. Of course, if it really came to that, the martial Tao prime body would have to summon the netherworld treasure mirror to fight to the death against 1 or 2 emperors of the ghost world, even if he had to sacrifice his essence blood. The 2 of them traveled through the spatial tunnel for more than half a day before descending again. Initially, the ghost world was pitch black. However, a dark green light that crossed the void appeared in front of the place where the 2 of them landed again, as though it was splitting the ghost world into 2. The void Yaksha pointed ahead with an excited expression. The 9 nether abyss is ahead. The surrounding void is chaotic and distorted, making it impossible to pass through. Let's just walk over. We can return to the medium Kiliacosm through the 9 nether abyss. The martial Tao prime body asked. Of course. The void Yaksha said with extreme certainty. The martial Tao prime body asked again how. The void Yaksha hesitated for a moment before grinning. You'll know when we get there. The martial Tao prime body did not say anything else and merely looked at the back of the void Yaksha with a dark gaze. Right now, he was almost certain that the void Yaksha had other motives. The void Yaksha had been imprisoned in Bitter Springs Hell for countless years and soaked in the Hell Bitter Springs all year round. His flesh was rotten and he endured countless torture and pain without submitting. Right now, it was a little abnormal for the void Yaksha to take the initiative to bring him here after being suppressed by him once. The 2 of them walked towards the dark green light ahead one after another. As the 2 of them approached, the martial Tao prime body felt the ghost chi in the surroundings thicken and gradually turn cold, seeping into his body through his pores. However, his bloodline was like scorching lava and the cold aura could not affect him much. After taking a few more steps, the martial Tao prime body frowned slightly. The cold aura became more and more obvious. Not only that, there was also a chaotic evil thought that could cause one to hallucinate, making it seem as though countless ghostly shadows and illusions were charging towards him. The martial Tao prime body stabilized his Tao heart and 2 purple flames appeared in his eyes. All the evil thoughts and illusions vanished instantly. The void Yaksha in front turned back to take another look. When he saw that the martial Tao prime body could move freely and did not seem to be affected at all, he was slightly stunned. However, he quickly concealed it and returned to normal. Right then, the gaze of the martial Tao prime body shifted and landed on the ground not far away. Orchids that shone with a dark light grew there. 9 nether orchid. These plants should have grown in the 9 nether era and had been extinct for countless eras. To think that he would see so many of them here. This place was called the 9 nether abyss and was filled with plants that grew in the 9 nether era. Could this place really be related to the legendary Great Empress 9 nether? The martial Tao prime body was not interested in the 9 nether orchid. However, to the green lotus true body, the 9 nether orchid was definitely a rare tonic. Chapter 28:14. Chapter 28:14. Battle in the Abyss. Chapter 28:14. Battle in the Abyss. The martial Tao prime body waved his hand and uprooted a large area of the 9 nether orchids in front of him. Soil flew endlessly and the surrounding ground trembled slightly. What are you doing? The commotion behind him shocked the void Yaksha. When he turned around and saw the actions of the martial Tao prime body, his eyes widened and he could not help but growl. This isn't the hell world. You don't have the right to do whatever you want. If you alarm the experts of our race, you won't be able to leave alive. Oh! The martial Tao prime body had an indifferent expression as he pocketed the 9 nether orchids. Unmoved. He could sense that the commotion here had already alarmed many living beings and powerful auras were awakened one after another. In the darkness, cracks appeared one after another and tall figures crawled out, emitting a terrifying aura. They were all kings of the Yaksha race. Roar! Roar! Another series of ear-piercing cries sounded from the surroundings. In the darkness, countless Yakshas were speeding over. The aura of a human. The Yaksha kings sniffed the air and instantly locked their gazes on the martial Tao prime body. Their eyes were ferocious as they licked their lips with their scarlet tongues and drooled like hungry ghosts that had just been released. At the same time, the commander of the Yaksha kings noticed the void Yaksha. His expression changed and he shouted with killing intent, "Ugly slave, you're not dead." The void Yaksha's heart sank as he explained hurriedly, "Brother Knight, I only survived because I endured extreme hardship and managed to escape death. I came back this time round because I wanted to meet Lady Ghost Mother." "You've committed a heinous crime and you're not worthy of meeting Lady Ghost Mother." The Yaksha commander shouted and interrupted. "Right now, Lady Ghost Mother is in hibernation. How dare you bring human living beings to infiltrate such an important place of our ghost world? You truly have ulterior motives and are unforgivable." The void Yaksha was anxious and glanced at the martial Tao prime body warily. Suddenly, he sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. "Brother Knight, this is a misunderstanding. I brought this human to Lady Ghost Mother to atone for my sins. This human's identity is extraordinary. He's the Lord of Hell and has many treasures on him." The Yaksha commander sneered and glanced at the martial Tao prime body, saying disdainfully, "Him? The Lord of Hell? It's absolutely true." The void Yaksha said hurriedly. It was indeed incomprehensible for a human of the medium Kiliacosm to become the Lord of Hell. However, he had indeed seen it with his own eyes. Pausing for a moment, the voice of the Yaksha commander sounded in the mind of the void Yaksha once more. "Ugly slave, even if you're right, why should I give you the credit? I want your life. I want his life too." Before his sentence was finished, the Yaksha commander waved his hand and said coldly, "Kill them." The void Yaksha's heart sank. The situation he was most worried about still happened. The reason why he wanted to secretly bring the martial Tao prime body to the River of Life to seek an audience with Lady Ghost Mother was to avoid being hunted down by his other clansmen. At the same time, he wanted to offer the martial Tao prime body to Lady Ghost Mother to atone for his sins. To think that the unintentional actions of the martial Tao prime body would expose the two of them and completely disrupt his plans. Furthermore, if Lady Ghost Mother was in hibernation, he would not be able to see her even if he arrived at the River of Life. Apart from a Yaksha commander who was also a void Yaksha, the others were from the three most common lineages of the Yaksha race: Earth Yaksha, Heaven Yaksha and Water Yaksha. The Yakshas were like hungry wolves. In their eyes, the martial Tao prime body was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered and emitted a strong fragrance. Upon hearing the commander's order, the Yakshas could no longer hold back. They grinned and bared their ferocious and sharp fangs, letting out excited screams as they pounced towards the martial Tao prime bodies. The martial Tao prime body had a fearless expression and his blood chi burned. Instantly, a scarlet halo burst forth and exploded, forming a gigantic domain of flames. Martial Tao Purgatory. A huge battle broke out near the Nine Nether Abyss. The martial Tao prime body had no intention of testing the waters at all. He released a powerful domain the moment he arrived, wanting to refine the Yaksha kings. The moment the Yaksha kings arrived, they were enveloped by the martial Tao purgatory and fell into a sea of flames. Their bodies burned with raging flames and they could not even take care of themselves. Yakshas beneath the Grotto Heaven realm could not even approach the martial Tao purgatory before they were forced to retreat. Some of them who were slower in dodging turned into ashes instantly. Splash! The sound of a tsunami sounded and bloodline phenomenons appeared one after another. Many Yaksha kings who fell into the sea of flames channeled their blood chi crazily, wanting to extinguish the flames on their bodies. However, the purgatory of the martial Tao prime body contained 5 incomparably powerful flames. The Red Lotus Karmic Fire, Myriad Tribulations Fire, Dragon Phoenix Flame, Martial Spirit Fire and Hellfire intertwined to form this terrifying purgatory that was enough to incinerate and refine everything. The moment many bloodline phenomenons of the Yakshas were condensed, They were burned into nothingness by the martial Tao purgatory and turned to ashes. Even the bloodline of the void yaksha could not extinguish the flames of the martial Tao purgatory, let alone the bloodlines of the ordinary yakshas. Boom! 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 Many yakshas wailed from the burning and did not dare to hesitate as they condensed their grotto heavens of various sizes. Suddenly, 2 purple flames rose in the eyes of the martial Tao prime body and shone with a deep and bright light. That was it. In the martial Tao purgatory, the martial Tao dermic arts were condensed and every inch of space was condensed with the will of the martial Tao. If the martial Tao prime body activated it with all his might, the moment the 2 parties came into contact, some low-level yaksha kings would be burned to ashes and their essence spirits would be destroyed. The reason why he did not use his full strength was because he wanted to wait for the yakshas to release their grotto heavens. Not only did the martial Tao prime body want to destroy this group of yaksha kings, more importantly, he wanted to refine all their grotto heavens and fuse them into his essence martial grotto heaven. Ordinary grotto heavens could reach the heavens and connect to the 3 realms. They could crazily plunder the heaven and earth essence chi, purifying it to refine, allowing the grotto heavens to grow continuously. As for the martial Tao prime body, he was a variable. The essence martial grotto heaven that evolved from the true martial Tao body was also a variable. The essence martial grotto heaven was outside of the 3 realms. It was already difficult for it to grow just by absorbing the heaven and earth essence chi. It could only grow by refining dermic Taos and devouring other grotto heavens. The major and minor grotto heavens of the yakshas were all nourishment for the essence martial grotto heaven. That was because once the martial Tao prime body summoned the essence martial grotto heaven, he would feel a strong sense of danger, as though a great calamity was about to descend. However, he could avoid that danger completely by condensing the martial Tao purgatory. There was no need for the martial Tao prime body to release the essence martial grotto heaven. Just the terrifying might of the martial Tao purgatory could burn and refine other grotto heavens and fuse them into the essence martial grotto heaven. The entire process seemed to have happened naturally. As for the essence martial grotto heaven, after absorbing the dermic Taos of the other grotto heavens, it could similarly return the dermic Tao profundities to the martial Tao prime body, allowing him to help the martial Tao purgatory grow. The martial Tao purgatory and essence martial grotto heaven could synergize perfectly and even complement each other. Chapter 28:15, Chapter 28:15, Refining It Alls. Chapter 28:15, Refining It All. The 9 nether abyss shone with a dark green light. On the other side of the 9 nether abyss, the martial Tao prime body transformed into a purgatory that enveloped dozens of yaksha kings. Raging flames surged into the skies. The 2 types of light shone brightly in the dark night sky of the ghost world. Dozens of yaksha kings realized in horror that their grotto heavens could not hold on in this purgatory. Even perfected grotto heavens could not defend against the burning of the martial Tao purgatory, let alone the major and minor grotto heavens. The 5 supreme flames interweaved with the dermic arts and will of the martial Tao. Crack! Crack! Grotto heavens shattered one after another, and countless dermic powers fused into the martial Tao purgatory. They transformed into flames that surged into the body of the martial Tao prime body, and were devoured by the essence martial grotto heaven. The martial Tao prime body stood in midair and was like a gigantic vortex, refining and devouring everything around him unscrupulously. Without the protection of the grotto heavens, the yaksha kings could not defend against the flames of the martial Tao purgatory at all. Howl, howl, howl. Within the purgatory, the yaksha kings let out tragic cries. Some yaksha kings were burned to ashes in a few breaths without a corpse left. The remaining yaksha kings could only barely hold on. Every single pore in their bodies, noses and mouths was spewing flames and they could no longer survive. In the martial Tao purgatory, they did not even have a chance to escape. On the other side, the outcome of the battle between the Void Yaksha and the Yaksha commander had already been decided. The Void Yaksha was covered in blood and the grotto heaven behind him had already shattered. It was stepped on by the Yaksha commander and half of his face was buried in the moist soil, unable to move. Ugly slave, back then, you surpassed me in every aspect. Did you expect this to happen? The Yaksha commander had an excited expression as he stomped on the Void Yaksha's head repeatedly. The Void Yaksha's skull seemed to be unable to withstand it and creaked, ready to shatter at any moment. After all, he had been imprisoned in Bitter Springs Hell for too many years and soaked in the Hell Bitter Springs all year round. Not only was his cultivation realm stagnant, his body and bloodline had also suffered immense damage and destruction. Although his body seemed to have recovered after escaping from the Hell world, there were still many hidden injuries in his body. It was unknown how long he would need to recuperate if he wanted to fully recover. As for the Yaksha commander who cultivated continuously in the ghost world, the difference in situations between the two of them naturally allowed him to surpass the Void Yaksha. Ugly slave, beg me for mercy. The Yaksha commander sneered, if your attitude is sincere, I might spare your life if I'm happy. Ha 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 ha. The Void Yaksha turned his face sideways and lay in the blood-colored soil with only one eye exposed. He was already in despair. He knew the other party's methods and personality. Even if he begged for mercy, the Yaksha commander would not let him off. The only reason why the other party did not kill the Void Yaksha immediately was because he wanted to enjoy the pleasure of torturing him to death. That sort of excitement was hidden in his blood as well. If he were in the same position, he would not let his opponent off so easily either. Ugly slave, you've committed a huge crime and were exiled to the Nether River. Now, you've even lured foreign races into our race. Your crimes are unforgivable. The Yaksha commander cursed. Even the entire ghost world won't tolerate you, let alone me. Before his sentence was finished, the Yaksha commander raised his leg once more and gathered strength. Thereafter, he stomped down heavily on the Void Yaksha's head. That single stomp was enough to crush his head and destroy his essence spirit. The Void Yaksha closed his eyes. Boom! Suddenly, a loud bang sounded above his head. The Void Yaksha's heart skipped a beat and he opened his eyes instinctively. A figure burning with flames arrived in the sky and the Yaksha commander was shattered by a single punch from him. Immediately after, the person opened his mouth and spat out a divine dragon heat flame that instantly engulfed the shattered flesh of the Yaksha commander. Before the Yaksha commander's essence spirit could escape, it was burned to ashes by the flames. It was the Lord of Hell. It was only at that moment that the Void Yaksha realized that the Lord of Hell had not used his full strength when the two of them fought in the Hell world. Otherwise, he would not have been able to defend against a single punch from the Lord of Hell. The Void Yaksha looked at the figure and suddenly felt guilty. If not for that person, he would still be trapped in the underground cage of Bitter Springs Hell and tortured by the Hell Bitter Springs day and night, never to see the light of day. Earlier on, that person saved his life once more. Previously, he was still thinking about how he could offer this person in exchange for his life. When the Void Yaksha saw the attitude of his own Yaksha race towards him, coupled with his guilt towards the martial Tao Prime body, he could not help but feel disheartened. I lied to you previously. Oh! The martial Tao Prime body looked down from above with a calm expression as he looked at the Void Yaksha beneath his feet. The Void Yaksha said, I tricked you into coming to the Nine Nether Abyss because I wanted to follow the Nine Nether Abyss to the River of Life to pay my respects to Lady Ghost Mother, and offer you up to wash away my sins. You're a human and the Lord of Hell. You even have a few peerless treasures on you. If Lady Ghost Mother is happy to see them, she might pardon me. You're a human but I'm a Yaksha. We're natural enemies. Even after you saved me, I didn't wish to be controlled by you. That was why I lied to you. The martial Tao Prime body remained silent. He had long sensed the abnormality in the Void Yaksha. However, he did not expect the Void Yaksha to have a conscience and be honest with him. The Void Yaksha continued. The commotion here will definitely alarm more experts of the Yaksha race. Perhaps quasi-emperor experts or even emperor realm Yakshas will descend. Although your combat strength is strong, you're no match for them. After you. Kill me, escape quickly. The Void Yaksha had no intention of living after saying that. Suddenly, the martial Tao Prime body said, You once said that there was a way to head to the medium Kiliacosm in the ghost world. Did you lie to me about that as well? That was true. The Void Yaksha said, In the ghost world, one can descend into a medium Kiliacosm through sacrificial offerings. However, only Lady Ghost Mother has the ability to use such methods. All right. The martial Tao Prime body nodded and said indifferently, Since you didn't lie to me about that, I'll spare your life first. After all, he relied on this Void Yaksha to leave the Hell world and meet up with the Green Lotus True Body in the Netherworld, allowing him to use the water of the boundless springs to help the Green Lotus True Body escape the danger of the curses. That was the reason why he tolerated the Void Yaksha until now. Although they could not contact one another, the Martial Tao Prime Body speculated that the Green Lotus True Body should have escaped danger. Since the Green Lotus True Body was fine, there was no need for him to return to the medium Kiliacosm in a hurry. As long as he knew that he could return to the medium Kiliacosm through the ghost world, he would definitely be able to find an opportunity. Of course, there were still too many unknown risks and uncertainties if this matter alarmed Brahma Ghost Mother. The Martial Tao Prime Body arrived at the edge of the 9 Nether Abyss and looked at the dark green light flickering in the abyss. As though he sensed something, a strange glint flashed through the depths of his eyes. Chapter 28:16. Chapter 28:16. Nether Ghost Fire. Chapter 28:16. Nether Ghost Fire. The Void Yaksha looked at the figure of the Martial Tao Prime Body with a blank expression and extremely complicated emotions. In his disheartened state, he told the truth with the intention of dying. To think that the Lord of Hell, who was decisive to kill in his eyes, did not kill him but gave him another chance. The Void Yaksha thought about it and smiled bitterly. Even if you don't kill me, the Yaksha race won't let me off. The Martial Tao Prime Body did not seem to have heard him and suddenly asked, "What's beneath the 9 Nether Abyss and why is it shining with such a dark green light?" At the mention of that, a hint of fear flashed through Void Yaksha's eyes. This abyss is the burial ground of the ghost world, and the bones of countless experts of the ghost world are buried there. The malevolent chi there is the heaviest. In the extreme environment of the 9 Nether Abyss, an extremely terrifying flame was born at some point in time. It's called the Nether Ghost Fire. The Nether Ghost Fire. The gaze of the Martial Tao Prime Body intensified. Actually, the moment he released the Martial Tao Purgatory, he could vaguely sense a powerful power hidden in the depths of the 9 Nether Abyss. That power could connect to the 5 supreme flames in his domain. Ghost flames were rather common in the cultivation world. There were even some cursed ghost flames in the Emperor's tomb. However, this was the first time he had heard of the Nether Ghost Fire. Was there a connection between the Nether Ghost Fire and the Netherworld Treasure Mirror? Of course, there are also legends that the Nether Ghost Fire came from the source of the Nether River. No one can say for sure. The Void Yaksha continued, "In short, the Nether Ghost Fire in the 9 Nether Abyss is extremely terrifying and can burn blood chi. Even Emperor Realm experts of the ghost world are wary of it. This ghostly green light is the flames emitted by the Nether Ghost Fire." Right then, a terrifying aura burst forth from the direction of the Yaksha ghost domain. Countless experts of the Yaksha race woke up in the darkness. "Hurry up and escape." Sensing this scene, the Void Yaksha urged hurriedly, "When the Yaksha quasi-emperors descend, you won't be able to defend at all. Even if you rely on those treasures to kill 1 or 2 quasi-emperors, you'll definitely alarm the true Yaksha emperors. Although you're the Lord of Hell, you can't fight against the entire ghost world at all. As for returning to the medium Kiliacosm, don't even think about it. Lady Ghost Mother is currently in a deep sleep and is protected by the 10 female Rakshasas and 8 Yakshas. You won't be able to approach her at all." The Martial Tao Prime Body had a calm expression and asked indifferently, "What about you?" "Me." The Void Yaksha grinned. "I definitely won't survive. The Yaksha race will definitely not let me off." Sensing the terrifying auras that rose in the direction of the Yaksha ghost domain, the Martial Tao Prime Body looked down at the 9 Nether Abyss and said meaningfully, "You're on your own. If you're tough, perhaps we'll meet again." With that said, the Martial Tao Prime Body leaped into the 9 Nether Abyss. "Ah!" The Void Yaksha was shocked and shouted, "Crazy, he's really crazy." The Void Yaksha struggled to stand up and staggered to the edge of the abyss. He looked at the abyss and could no longer see the figure of the Martial Tao Prime Body. "If you jump into the 9 Nether Abyss, I'm afraid we won't meet again." The Void Yaksha murmured softly. "That's not right either." He laughed tragically again. "I'm about to die. After we die, if our souls have the chance to enter the Netherworld, we might be fated to meet once." Right then, the figures of the Yaksha race charged forward from the darkness. The few in the lead had terrifying auras and were already quasi-emperors. The rest were all kings of the Yaksha race. In the battle earlier on, dozens of Yaksha kings died and the experts of the 8 planes of the Yaksha ghost domain were alarmed. Apart from battles between the two ghost domains, the Yaksha ghost domain had never lost so many people in a short period of time. What happened? A Yaksha quasi-emperor in the lead asked in a deep voice. This quasi-emperor came from one of the 8 planes, the half-obscure plane. Prior to this, many Yakshas had already gathered around and witnessed the entire process. The Yakshas advanced one after another and recounted the battle that happened earlier on. Another quasi-emperor from the Mani plane rolled his eyes and looked at the void Yaksha with a ferocious gaze. He said slowly, "Ugly slave, you're a sinner and yet you dare to bring foreign races into the ghost world. You deserve to die for betraying the ghost race." The half-obscure quasi-emperor said coldly. Knowing that he would definitely die, the void Yaksha no longer had any fear in his heart. He puffed out his chest and shouted, "I was indeed the one who brought that human in, but I've never betrayed the ghost race. How dare you quibble?" The quasi-emperor of the Snow Mountain Plain sneered and glared at the void Yaksha with a dark gaze. He asked slowly, "Tell me, how did you survive after you were exiled to the Nether River, and how did you return to the ghost world? Tell me the entire process, including the background of that human. If you hide anything, I'll definitely torture you and make you wish you were dead." The void Yaksha felt no guilt and had nothing to hide. He said, "I was exiled to the Nether River by Lady Ghost Mother, and thought that I would definitely die. Unexpectedly, I was accidentally swept into another tributary of the Nether River, and this tributary led to the Hell World. In the depths of the 9 Nether Abyss, the martial Tao Prime body could no longer control his body and could only descend continuously. There seemed to be an invisible force pulling his body forcefully from the abyss. The martial Tao Prime body lowered his head. Under the dim green light, the bottom of the abyss was filled with corpses and mountains. The most obvious characteristic of the corpses was that they did not have any flesh on them, but their bones were intact. Some of the skeletons maintained their combat stances right before their deaths. Through the forms of the skeletons, it was easy to tell the race of the owner of the skeletons. Some were from the Yaksha race. Some of the skeletons had bone wings on their backs and were clearly of the Rakshasa race. Suddenly, the gaze of the martial Tao Prime body focused on a Rakshasa skeleton. There were 4 pairs of bone wings on the back of the Rakshasa skeleton. Perfected spirits of the Rakshasa race only had 2 pairs of wings. Kings had 3 pairs of wings. Only by cultivating to the Emperor realm could there be 4 pairs of wings. That was a Rakshasa of the Emperor realm. As for the skull of the Rakshasa Emperor, it was penetrated by the sharp claws of another Yaksha. The bone wings on the Rakshasa's back severed half of the head of the Yaksha opposite him. If he was not wrong, this Yaksha was also an Emperor realm expert. As expected of the burial ground of the ghost world in the depths of the 9 Nether Abyss, there were even the bones of Emperor realm experts. Furthermore, there were more than just these 2. Wherever the martial Tao Prime body looked, he could see more than 10 Emperor realm skeletons that were relatively well preserved standing on the countless bones. Although they were only skeletons that had died for an unknown period of time, they still emitted a shuddering aura. Ghost chi lingered and their mites were still present. Chapter 28:17. Chapter 28:17. Martial Domain Realm, Greater Mastery. Chapter 28:17. Martial Domain Realm, Greater Mastery. Nether green flames were burning through the cracks of the skeletons. The temperature was not high, but the martial Tao Prime body felt an intense burning pain. The Nether Ghost Fire. As though it sensed the descent of the martial Tao Prime body, the flames that were initially burning quietly in the cracks of its bones suddenly became irritable. The flames intensified and countless ghostly shadows seemed to appear, drowning the martial Tao Prime body instantly. Bang! The martial Tao Prime body slammed heavily against the pile of bones. He was already engulfed by the Nether Ghost Fire and his blood chi was depleting rapidly. The Void Yaksha was right. The Nether Ghost Fire could burn one's blood chi. Not only that, the flesh of the martial Tao Prime body was also burning wildly. It was as though countless ghosts were hiding in the flames and biting his flesh crazily. The figure of the martial Tao Prime body shriveled at a visible speed. Pain. Intense pain. However, that pain was far inferior to the pain brought about by the hellfire in Avicii. the martial Tao prime body could still maintain his consciousness. Of course, he did not choose to jump down the 9 nether abyss on impulse. The battle earlier on had already alarmed the Yaksha ghost domain. Just as the Void Yaksha had said, once a quasi-emperor or emperor realm expert descended, he would not be able to defend at all. Furthermore, he was way too unfamiliar with the ghost world. Even if he escaped immediately, he might not be able to hide for long. The best way out was the 9 nether abyss. There was the nether ghost fire in the 9 nether abyss, and even emperor realm experts were wary of it. Naturally, the martial Tao prime body could not defend against it either. However, as long as he could fuse it into his body before the nether ghost fire killed him and turn it into the 6th flame of the martial Tao purgatory, the nether ghost fire would no longer be a threat. That action was naturally extremely dangerous. However, the martial Tao prime body had a similar experience in Avicii before. That was the reason why he took the risk and tried to devour and refine the nether ghost fire. If he failed, he would inevitably die. However, if he could succeed, the improvement to the martial Tao prime body would be way too great. With the addition of another powerful and terrifying flame into the martial Tao purgatory, the increase in the power of the domain would only be one of the benefits. In fact, there was a high chance that the nether ghost fire could raise the cultivation realm of the martial Tao prime body to another level in a short period of time. The martial Tao prime body endured the pain and sat cross-D. His clothes had long turned to ashes and even the Mara mask on his face had fallen off. If anyone else was here, they would not be able to recognize him. The martial Tao prime body was already unrecognizable under the burning of the nether ghost fire. Thankfully, he cultivated the martial Tao and condensed the true martial Tao body. Every single inch of his flesh contained the dermic formulation and will of the martial Tao. Otherwise, his flesh would have been incinerated in just a few breaths. This abyss was a place of extreme een and there were countless ghost skeletons. It was filled with malevolent chi that nourished the nether ghost fire all year round, making it incomparably powerful. Even Emperor Realm experts were wary and the true martial Tao body could not defend against it. He could only delay the speed of the nether ghost fire burning flesh to the greatest extent and buy time for the martial Tao prime body. The martial Tao prime body released the martial Tao purgatory and transformed into the martial Tao furnace at the same time, trying to refine the nether ghost fire continuously. The nether ghost fire was way too strong. It was different from the 5 supreme flames he controlled. Furthermore, even if the martial Tao prime body tried to smelt it with the 5 flames of the martial spirit fire, red lotus karmic fire, tribulation fire, dragon phoenix flame and hellfire, he could not subdue it immediately. The martial Tao prime body could only endure the pain patiently and maintain his consciousness. The harder the flames were to subdue, the greater the improvement for him once he controlled them. Furthermore, the martial spirit of the martial Tao prime body was a purple flame and no one could compare to his comprehension and perception of flames. If the refinement failed, he would try again. The cycle repeated again and again. The nether ghost fire on the martial Tao prime body did not extinguish the entire time. As time passed, the flesh on his body decreased. After an unknown period of time, another skeleton sat cross-D on the endless skeletons in the depths of the 9 nether abyss. At that moment, the martial Tao prime body did not have much flesh on him. Only a skeleton engraved with countless mysterious runes and intertwined with dermic Taos was left sitting there, bathed in dark green flames. Through the holes in the eyes of the skull, one could clearly see a purple flame floating behind his glabella. If the flesh of the martial Tao prime body was completely burned by the nether ghost fire, his essence spirit would be next. The nether ghost fire did not burn bones. That was the reason why countless skeletons were piled up in this abyss. Time was running out. The martial Tao prime body's heart was as calm as water. Apart from the dark green nether ghost fire, there were 4 other flames floating beside him. The 4 flames circled continuously and resonated with the martial spirit fire behind his glabella. Suddenly, the skeleton shuddered and 2 dark green flames suddenly rose from the black holes in its eyes. It was the nether ghost fire. The next moment, the aura of the skeleton changed drastically, as though it had fused with the surrounding nether ghost fire. Although the nether ghost fire was still burning on his body, he could no longer feel any damage. Instead, he felt a warm and comfortable feeling. Success! The martial Tao prime body was delighted. Due to his cultivation realm, the nether ghost fire released by him was far inferior to the nether ghost fire in the 9 nether abyss. However, the surrounding nether ghost fire could no longer hurt him. The next moment, countless flesh and blood grew rapidly on the skeleton, filling its entire body. Enveloped by the nether ghost fire, the martial Dao prime body reconstructed the true martial Dao body. At the same time, the aura in his body rose rapidly. Another powerful flame was added to the martial Dao purgatory. The power of his domain increased exponentially, and the speed at which he refined sutras and secret skills increased as well. Be it the martial Dao purgatory or reconstructing the true martial Dao body, they required a large amount of heaven and earth essence chi. Suddenly, the skeleton stood up and opened its mouth to inhale. Phew! Phew! An endless stream of ghost chi surged from the heavens and the earth, gushing towards the 9 nether abyss as though it was being pulled by a powerful force. For ordinary cultivators, it was difficult for them to absorb ghost chi to cultivate. However, the martial Dao prime body had no reservations at all. A massive and dense ghost chi surged into the martial Dao purgatory and was instantly burned by the 6 supreme flames, refining the impurities. Only the incomparably pure heaven and earth essence chi was left to nourish the true martial Dao body. The flesh of the martial Dao prime body, who had reforged the true martial Dao body, was enriching rapidly, and his body gradually returned to normal. The martial Dao purgatory was also accumulating energy continuously and reaching its peak rapidly. Boom! A deafening bang sounded from the body of the martial Dao prime body. Instantly the ground shook. An even more terrifying and larger domain burst forth instantly. Raging flames surged into the skies and even charged out of the 9 nether abyss. The prime body took another step forward in the martial Dao realm. He had attained greater mastery of his martial domain realm. Chapter 28:18. Chapter 28:18. Another breakthrough. Chapter 28:18. Another breakthrough. 9 nether abyss. What happened? What happened? The yakshas who were interrogating the void yaksha could not help but frown when they sensed the commotion below the 9 nether abyss. A few yaksha quasi-emperors arrived at the edge of the abyss and looked down. In their senses, the 9 nether abyss was like the mouth of a gigantic beast that devoured the world, consuming the ghost chi of the entire ghost world crazily. The void yaksha revealed a surprised expression as well. This was the first time such an abnormality had happened in the 9 nether abyss. Earlier on, the Lord of Hell leaped in. Could this abnormality be related to him? The void yaksha could not believe it. Logically speaking, the Lord of Hell should have long been burned into a skeleton by the nether ghost fire and died. Did you guys witness that human leaping into the abyss with your own eyes? A yaksha quasi-emperor turned around and asked in a deep voice as he looked at his surrounding clansmen. There's no mistake. That human's temperament was rather unyielding and he committed suicide. Here. Many yakshas replied hurriedly. Humph. Another quasi-emperor sneered. What unyielding temperament? If he falls into my hands, he'll wish he was dead. Dying in the 9 nether abyss is letting him off too easily. Before his sentence was finished, a loud bang sounded from below the abyss. Immediately after, the ground shook. The yakshas standing at the edge of the abyss were caught off guard and staggered. In their shock, they soared into the air and looked towards the 9 nether abyss. Phew! The next moment, a searing and ferocious flame spewed out from below the 9 nether abyss and devoured a yaksha quasi-emperor who could not dodge in time like a volcano. Ah! The yaksha quasi-emperor burned with flames and let out a tragic cry. He hurriedly propped up his perfected grotto heaven and channeled his bloodline, wanting to defend against the flames from the abyss. His grotto heaven already contained a trace of world power. However, his perfected grotto heaven could not hold on against the flames, and was burned red in a few breaths. Not only that, his blood chi was burning rapidly as well. His body shriveled at a visible speed. The yaksha quasi-emperor had a terrified expression and screamed, wanting to escape from the range of the flames. However, no matter how he charged, he could not escape from the flames. At the edge of the terrifying flames, there seemed to be an invisible barrier that blocked him. Crack! Crack! the perfected grotto heaven of the Yaksha quasi-emperor could no longer hold on and cracks appeared. His originally tall and burly body shrunk by a large margin as well, emitting thick smoke like a skeleton wrapped in charred skin. Before long, under the horrified gazes of countless yakshas, the Yaksha quasi-emperor was burned to ashes by the flames spewing out from the bottom of the abyss. Pest! Many yakshas were secretly shocked and horrified. In just a few breaths, a quasi-emperor expert was burned to death. Furthermore, the flames that spewed out of the abyss were clearly not the nether ghost fire but another type of flame that was interwoven with countless dermic arts and contained a powerful will. What was that? Where did this flame come from? The yakshas with insufficient cultivation retreated in fear. Even the yaksha quasi-emperors had wary expressions and did not dare to advance rashly. Even the yaksha quasi-emperor could not defend against it earlier on. Even if they went forward, it would be useless. Only the void yaksha looked at the flames in the abyss in deep thought. The will contained in the flames was familiar, as though it was the ruler of the world. It was incomparably domineering and unshakable, as though it came from the Lord of Hell. However, the Lord of Hell's purgatory could at most kill yakshas with perfected grotto heavens. It should not be able to trap a quasi-emperor. However, even quasi-emperors could not withstand the flames in front of him. Could it be that the Lord of Hell is not dead? Suddenly, the void yaksha recalled the meaningful words the martial Tao prime body said to him before leaping into the nine nether abyss. Although he did not know what happened in the nine nether abyss, the void yaksha could vaguely sense that the terrifying flame should be related to the martial Tao prime body. When the martial Tao prime body entered the martial domain realm and had just attained lesser mastery of it, he could sweep through the grotto heaven realm and suppress all grotto heaven kings. Now that he was at greater mastery of the martial domain realm and the might of the martial Tao purgatory had increased exponentially, he could completely suppress quasi-emperor experts. However, the advancement of the martial Tao prime body had not stopped. The martial Tao prime body had long condensed the essence martial grotto heaven. However, although he absorbed and refined some grotto heavens in the battle in the Builder Tree mountain range, he was far from breaking through. Later on, when he fought in the Hell world to become the Lord of Hell, he devoured some grotto heavens again, including 2 perfected grotto heavens of quasi-emperors. However, he did not have the chance to refine and absorb them after devouring them. Earlier on in the battle at the edge of the abyss, the martial Tao prime body killed dozens of yaksha kings and fused their grotto heavens into his body once more. Now that he had attained greater mastery of the martial domain realm, the essence martial grotto heavens circulated as well and absorbed and digested the dermic Taos condensed in the many grotto heavens crazily. Under normal circumstances, although the martial Tao prime body had already mastered 6 types of supreme flames, he could not refine and absorb so many grotto heaven dermic Taos in a short period of time. However, this place belonged to the 9 nether abyss and the nether ghost fire burning around it had reached the emperor realm. The martial Tao prime body was limited by his cultivation realm and the nether ghost fire he controlled had yet to reach the emperor realm. However, he could make use of the surrounding nether ghost fire to help him refine and devour the grotto heavens. That was the true meaning of setting oneself on fire. However, after he comprehended the nether ghost fire in the 9 nether abyss would no longer cause him any harm. With the help of the emperor-level nether ghost fire, the many grotto heaven dermic Taos devoured by the martial Tao prime body melted at a terrifying speed. All the essence martial grotto heaven had to do was to absorb all the dermic Taos. After greater mastery of the martial Tao purgatory, the essence martial grotto heaven grew rapidly as well. The power contained in it rose continuously, finally reaching its peak. Boom! Another deafening bang sounded from the body of the martial Tao prime body. Suddenly, the figure of the martial Tao prime body vanished. Under the cover of the nether ghost fire, a dark and deep grotto heaven appeared and suddenly expanded like a gigantic black hole of the cosmos. Immediately after, the gigantic and deep grotto heaven vanished once more and the figure of the martial Tao prime body reappeared. However, after that short disappearance, the aura of the martial Tao prime body clearly became even more terrifying. It was like the vast starry slues and was unfathomable. Greater mastery of the grotto heaven realm. The essence martial grotto heaven had already transformed into a major grotto heaven. The true martial Tao body of the martial Tao prime body was the essence martial grotto heaven. Now that the essence martial grotto heaven had attained greater mastery, the physique and bloodline of the martial Tao prime body were reborn and HRS strength increased exponentially. The martial Tao prime body felt that every single move he made could release a shocking divine power, causing the void to tremble and the weather to change. Even without releasing the martial Tao purgatory, the martial Tao prime body believed that he could fight quasi-emperor experts with just his physique and bloodline. Chapter 28:19, Chapter 28:19, Awakening of the Skeletons. Chapter 28:19, Awakening of the Skeletons. More and more yakshas and rakshasas gathered near the 9 nether abyss and discussed spiritedly. However, no one dared to approach the abyss. Before the quasi-emperors could figure it out, another loud bang sounded from the depths of the 9 nether abyss. The ground shook. This alarmed the entire ghost world. Terrifying auras burst forth from the 2 ghost domains with unrestrained might. The Emperor Realm experts who were originally in seclusion woke up one after another. What happened? 2 figures appeared in succession above the 9 nether abyss. Just by standing in midair, the spirit consciousness pressure emitted from their bodies was enough to make one shudder. Even the many kings and quasi-emperors of the ghost world present lowered their heads and knelt on the ground with reverence. In the end, the commotion of the 9 nether abyss alarmed the Emperor Realm experts of the 2 ghost domains. Lord! A yaksha quasi-emperor hurriedly recounted what happened in detail. A human? He didn't die in the 9 nether abyss. A yaksha emperor narrowed his eyes slightly. Humph. Another Rakshasa emperor with 8 wings harumphed coldly and said slowly, Lady Ghost Mother is in a deep sleep. If we disturb her, can your yaksha race bear the responsibility? Stop arguing. Let's deal with that human in the abyss first. The yaksha emperor said in a deep voice. There's clearly life force fluctuation in the nether ghost fire below the abyss. If the nether ghost fire can't kill him, we'll just kill him personally. The 8-winged Rakshasa said coldly. The flames spewed out by the martial Tao purgatory posed a huge threat to quasi-emperors, but the 2 emperors of the ghost realm were fearless. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 emperors of the ghost world each propped up a world and suppressed the flames burning in the 9 nether abyss. The ferocious and terrifying flames earlier on were extinguished rapidly, and collapsed continuously under the suppression of the worlds of the 2 emperor experts. The 2 emperor experts of the ghost world descended from the skies with cold gazes and descended into the 9 nether abyss. When the nearby yakshas and rakshasas saw that, they heaved a sigh of relief and became excited. It was extremely rare for emperor experts of the yaksha and rakshasa races to appear at the same time and even join forces to fight enemies. Sight. Emperor experts were still alarmed at the end of the day. The void yaksha looked at the figures of the 2 emperor experts and suddenly felt worried for the human. It might not be a bad thing if he's dead. At least he won't suffer the torture of the 2 races. However, if he's not dead, even if he obtains some opportunities below, how can he fight against the 2 emperors? Below the abyss. The martial Tao prime body, who had just broken through not long ago, sensed something amiss very quickly. Right above him, 2 incomparably powerful forces were suppressing him. He had just attained greater mastery of the martial Tao purgatory, and could not defend against it at all. It only lasted for a moment before collapsing. The martial Tao prime body frowned slightly. If he was not wrong, the 2 above should be emperor experts of the ghost world. Only the power of the emperor realm could suppress his martial Tao purgatory. Suddenly, the figure of the martial Tao prime body turned blurry and his eyes darkened. He had just thought of releasing the major essence martial grotto heaven and the major martial Tao purgatory to fight against the worlds of the 2 emperors of the ghost world. Ever since the martial Tao purgatory was condensed, it had never been released at the same time as the essence martial grotto heaven. The martial Tao prime body did not know how powerful his domain and grotto heaven would be after they were released at the same time. He speculated that the synthesis of the 2 powers might be able to fight against the power of an emperor. However, before long, he suppressed that thought. It was too risky. Once the essence martial grotto heaven was released, the sense of danger was way too strong, as though a calamity would descend at any moment. Most importantly, he could not trace the source of that sense of danger even now. The unknown threat was the most terrifying. Unless he had no other choice, There was no need for him to take the risk. Although the martial Tao prime body had yet to control power of the Emperor realm at the moment, there was an endless power of the Emperor realm right here in the 9 Nether abyss. The Nether Ghost Fire. The martial Tao prime body channeled his essence spirit and used the Nether Ghost Fire as a medium to establish a connection with the 2 skeletons standing around him. The skeletons that could maintain their standing posture in the 9 Nether abyss were all Emperor realm experts of the ghost world when they were alive. But now, 2 balls of dark green flames suddenly rose from the holes in the eyes of the 2 skeletons and their bodies shone brightly. Instantly, the 2 Emperor realm skeletons seemed to have recovered their vitality and roared into the skies. The bones in the 9 Nether abyss had been burned by the Nether Ghost Fire all year round. From a certain perspective, they had already been tempered into weapons and become a part of the Nether Ghost Fire. After the martial Tao prime body comprehended the Nether Ghost Fire, he could use it to control the skeletons in the 9 Nether abyss. On the other side, the 2 Emperor experts of the Yaksha and Rakshasa races condensed their worlds and suppressed down, approaching the bottom of the 9 Nether abyss rapidly. In their line of sight, they could already see a black-haired, purple-robed man standing in the Nether Ghost Fire beneath the abyss. He wore a silver mask and his flesh was intact. The 2 Emperor experts frowned. Even with their cultivation realms, they did not dare to be so careless and had to release a world to defend against the Nether Ghost Fire beneath the 9 Nether abyss. What was up with this human? Right then, the 2 skeletons standing closest to the purple-robed man suddenly woke up. The Nether Ghost Fire that was initially fine burned fiercely and the flames intensified. Immediately after, 2 skeletons surrounded by flames reared their heads and roared into the skies. They turned around abruptly and glared at the 2 Emperor experts in midair. 2 balls of dark green flames burned in their eyes in a sinister manner. Well, the 2 Emperor experts of the Yaksha and Rakshasa races felt a chill run down their spines when they were targeted by the 2 skeletons with bewildered expressions. The 2 emperors of the ghost world saw it clearly. The 2 skeletons below were Emperor realm experts back then as well. One of them was even of the Rakshasa race and had 8 bone wings on his back. It was extremely obvious. The 2 Emperor realm skeletons had died for many years. Why would they suddenly wake up? Furthermore, why were they so hostile towards them? Boom! Right then, the 2 Emperor realm skeletons below suddenly moved. Among them, the Yaksha Emperor skeleton stomped heavily on the ground and crushed countless corpses. He soared into the sky and pounced towards the Yaksha Emperor. The other Rakshasa Emperor skeleton burned with dark green flames. It flapped its 8 wings and soared into the air, charging towards the Rakshasa Emperor at an even faster speed. The expressions of the 2 Emperor experts of the Yaksha and Rakshasa races changed starkly. If there were only 2 Emperor realm skeletons, they would not pose much of a threat to them. Although the bones of the Emperor realm were tough, without flesh and blood, their strength was greatly reduced. Coupled with the fact that they were already dead with their essence spirits destroyed, they could not create worlds and the combat strength they could unleash was limited. However, those 2 Emperor realm skeletons burned with the Nether Ghost Fire that contained a terrifying might and could threaten them. Chapter 2820. Chapter 2820. Sigh in the Darkness. Chapter 2820. Sigh in the Darkness. The 2 Emperor experts of the Yaksha and Rakshasa races did not dare to be careless. They propped up a world and suppressed the 2 Emperor realm skeletons that were burning with Nether Ghost Fire. Boom! Boom! Accompanied by 2 loud bangs, the power of the Emperor realm collided and erupted with a gigantic grey halo that spread rapidly. The void beneath the abyss collapsed and shattered instantly. After all, the 2 Emperor realm skeletons did not have a world to protect them. They were suppressed by the 2 great Emperor realm experts and fell heavily on the pile of bones. However, they could not sense pain or fear at all. Under the control of the martial Tao prime body, they stood up rapidly and charged forward once more. Boom! 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 The 2 Emperor experts of the Yaksha and Rakshasa races fought against the 2 skeletons continuously below the abyss in an intense battle. It was difficult for the 2 Emperor realm skeletons to fight against 2 Emperor realm experts head-on. However, every time they exchanged blows head-on, the world supported by the 2 Emperor realm experts would be tainted by the Nether Ghost Fire and their strength would weaken continuously. At the same time, there was endless malevolent chi under the 9 Nether abyss. The nether ghost fire on the 2 Emperor Realm skeletons was nourished by the malevolent chi and would not be extinguished. Instead, the flames burned even more vigorously. As time passed, the 2 Emperor Realm experts gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Of course, it was unrealistic for him to kill 2 true Emperor Realm experts with the help of the nether ghost fire in the abyss and the 2 Emperor Realm skeletons. When the Rakshasa Emperor saw how long it was taking to get through, his gaze shifted to the martial Dao prime body and he said slowly, "Human, this is the ghost world. You can't escape at all. It's best if you surrender." The Yaksha Emperor grinned sinisterly as well. "Human, you've killed so many of my clansmen. I'll let you have a taste of the torture of the ghost world." The expression of the martial Dao prime body turned cold as he channeled his spirit consciousness. Beside him, 2 balls of flame suddenly rose from the eyes of 2 other Emperor Realm skeletons and their bodies shone brightly. Boom! Boom! 2 more Emperor Realm skeletons woke up and charged towards the 2 Emperor experts to join the battlefield. "You!" When the 2 Emperor experts saw that, their expressions changed and they let out a long roar as they fought and retreated. They were already struggling against 2 Emperor Realm skeletons bathed in the nether ghost fire, let alone 4 of them working together. Right then, a crack suddenly opened above the abyss. A beautiful shadow with a voluptuous figure walked out with a flower cage in her hands. Her entire body emitted a faint glow and her skin was as fair and delicate as ivory. She had moon-like eyebrows and starry eyes and had an extraordinary appearance. The woman looked no different from a human. However, the moment she appeared, more than half of the nether ghost fire on the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons was extinguished. An Emperor Realm expert. Furthermore, this should be a top Emperor Realm expert of the ghost world. Greetings, Rakshasa Kutadanti. When the first 2 emperors of the ghost world saw this woman, they retreated hurriedly and left the battlefield, bowing respectfully in her direction. The martial Dao prime body nodded to himself when he saw that. In the Rakshasa race, men were incomparably ugly while women were as beautiful as fairies. The Void Yaksha had once mentioned to the martial Dao prime body that the Rakshasa race was ruled by 10 female Rakshasas. If even 2 emperor experts of the ghost world were so respectful, there was a high chance that this person was one of the 10 female Rakshasas. Although the martial Dao prime body had yet to advance to the Emperor Realm, he could guess that there were strong and weak Emperor Realm experts as well. For example, Emperor Bo-Soon and Fiend Emperor Apocalypse, who he had interacted with, were the top experts of the Emperor Realm. As for the 2 emperors of the ghost world earlier on, they were ordinary emperors. There was a high chance that Rakshasa Kutadanti's combat strength was comparable to Emperor Bo-Soon and Fiend Emperor Apocalypse. "What are you guys doing here?" Rakshasa Kutadanti looked at the 2 emperors of the ghost world coldly and said in an icy tone, "Aren't you afraid of disturbing Lady Ghost Mother by causing such a huge commotion?" Rakshasa Kutadanti. The Yaksha Emperor hurriedly recounted what happened earlier on and pointed at the martial Dao prime body below the abyss. "It's this human. Dozens of Yaksha kings died in his hands." Trash. Rakshasa Kutadanti's expression did not change at all as she sneered. Thereafter, Rakshasa Kutadanti's gaze shifted to the martial Dao prime body. She looked down from above and said slowly, "To think that you can survive the nether ghost fire. You have some skills. Let me give it a try." The moment she said that, Rakshasa Kutadanti moved and lunged towards the martial Dao prime body. The martial Dao prime body did not dare to be careless. He controlled the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons and had them join forces as shields against Rakshasa Kutadanti. At the same time, he sent out his spirit consciousness to awaken the other Emperor Realm skeletons below the abyss. It would probably be difficult for the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons alone to defend against Rakshasa Kutadanti. Indeed. Rakshasa Kutadanti sneered and spun in the direction of the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons with the flower cage in her hands. The flower cage seemed to have turned into a bottomless vortex that emitted an unstoppable power that swallowed the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons. The martial Dao prime body severed his connection with the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons instantly. The world of Rakshasa Kutadanti was in that flower cage. The martial Dao prime body willed. Phew! 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 Below the abyss, more than 10 Emperor Realm skeletons stood with 2 balls of flames burning in their eyes. The nether ghost fire on their bodies intensified and they all woke up. More than 10 Emperor Realm skeletons attacked at the same time and surrounded Rakshasa Kutadanti. Rakshasa Kutadanti frowned. She released the flower cage in her hand again, and continued to devour the Emperor Realm skeletons that were charging over. The martial Tao Prime body stretched his arms and stood on the Nether Ghost fire. He floated in midair and channeled his spirit consciousness crazily, spreading endlessly below the abyss, trying his best to awaken all the Emperor Realm skeletons in the abyss. Rumble! Instantly, the 9 nether abyss swayed and countless boulders rolled down. Many corpses that had died for a long time were bathed in the Nether Ghost fire and woke up one after another. They reared their heads and roared, letting out a soul-stirring wail. When she saw that, the expression of Rakshasa Kutadanti changed as well. It was not a problem for her world to devour more than 10 Emperor Realm skeletons. However, if all the corpses and skeletons below the abyss woke up with Nether Ghost fire on them, her world would not be able to withstand it either. More importantly, the commotion here was way too great. Right then, a shuddering aura burst forth from the direction of the River of Life, as though an incomparably terrifying existence had awakened. The corpses and skeletons that were originally howling in the 9 nether abyss shut their mouths one after another as though they were shocked. The martial Tao Prime body looked in the direction of the River of Life instinctively as well. There was only endless darkness over there. However, in the endless darkness, it was as though an indescribable shadow had risen. It was boundless, as though it was looking down on the entire ghost world. Near the 9 nether abyss, be it the Yaksha or Rakshasa races, be it their cultivation realms, they revealed reverence and fear and knelt on the ground one after another. Even Rakshasa Kutadanti knelt down. Sigh! In the direction of the River of Life, at the end of the 9 nether abyss, a faint sigh sounded from the endless darkness. In the 9 nether abyss, the Nether Ghost fire on the many corpses and skeletons that had just woken up was extinguished. Chapter 28-21. Chapter 28-21. Brahma Ghost Mother. Chapter 28-21. Brahma Ghost Mother. With just a sigh, even the Nether Ghost fire in the 9 nether abyss could not withstand it. From top to bottom of the 9 nether abyss, countless ghosts knelt on the ground, not daring to move or even raise their heads. Only the martial Tao Prime body was still standing there. He looked at the gigantic shadow outline in the darkness in the distance and felt his heart palpitate. That power was enough to kill him. Even if he summoned the Essence Martial Grotto Heaven, Hell Suppression Tripod and activated the Netherworld Treasure Mirror by sacrificing his essence blood completely, he might not be able to defend against it. Great Emperor. Those 2 words that were extremely heavy flashed through the mind of the martial Tao Prime body. After his martial domain realm and the Essence Martial Grotto Heaven broke through to greater mastery, although his combat strength was still unable to fight against Emperor experts head-on, he could already vaguely see the threshold of the Emperor realm. But now, facing the shadow in the distance, he could only sense that it was out of reach. Was this the Lord of the Ghost World, Brahma Ghost Mother? The difference was way too great. If that Sigh could extinguish the Nether Ghost fire, it could naturally extinguish the martial spirit fire in his consciousness with ease. Why is it so noisy? A voice sounded from the endless darkness. It was hoarse and had a hint of vicissitudes, as though the owner of the voice was very old. The entire ghost world was silent. That was the only voice echoing in the vast world. Rakshasa Kutadanti still maintained her kneeling posture. She glared at the 2 Ghost Realm Emperors not far away and gestured for them to speak. Lady Ghost Mother. The 2 Emperors of the Ghost World recounted everything that happened in detail hurriedly. After saying that, there was no sound for a long time, as though Brahma Ghost Mother had fallen asleep again. However, all the ghosts knew that their mistress was watching them from the end of the darkness. That terrifying aura was still enveloping the entire ghost world. Oh! After an unknown period of time, Brahma Ghost Mother's voice sounded again. Ugly slave, you're still alive. The Void Yaksha shuddered in fear when he heard that. Ella Lady Ghost Mother, I was lucky to survive and brought that human back here with no ill intentions. I definitely won't betray you and the ghost race. The Void Yaksha said shakily. Brahma Ghost Mother did not reply. Suddenly, the martial Tao Prime body felt his hair stand on end and his scalp tingle. Although he could not see anything, his spirit perception told him that Brahma Ghost Mother's gaze was already on him. In the endless darkness, Brahma Ghost Mother was watching him. The new Lord of Hell? Foo-foo. Brahma Ghost Mother actually laughed and murmured, believe you're the person he mentioned. The Martial Tao Prime Body frowned slightly. What did Brahma Ghost Mother mean by that? Who was he? There were others who mentioned him to Brahma Ghost Mother. Before the Martial Tao Prime Body could react, the darkness in the distance surged continuously and a large shadow enveloped down, as though it had transformed into a gigantic ghost hand that grabbed towards him. Enveloped by the ghost hand, the Martial Tao Prime Body could not move at all and could only watch helplessly as the ghost hand descended. The ghost hand appeared above his head and suddenly stopped, shrinking slightly. The chest of the Martial Tao Prime Body exploded and blood spewed out. Immediately after, a dark light flashed and was forcefully pulled out of his body, landing in the palm of the pitch-black ghost hand. The Netherworld Treasure Mirror. That treasure could not be placed in the storage bag and was placed in the Essence Martial Grotto Heaven by the Martial Tao Prime Body. To think that Brahma Ghost Mother seemed to be able to see through something and grabbed the Netherworld Treasure Mirror out of his body. Ugh. Brahma Ghost Mother's voice sounded. This ancient mirror is indeed with you. The Yaksha Emperor volunteered bravely and said in a deep voice, Lady Ghost Mother, there's no need for you to kill a human ant personally. Leave it to us. Who said that I'm going to kill him? Brahma Ghost Mother asked. Ha! The ghosts in the 9 Nether Abyss were stunned. The pitch-black ghost hand relinquished its grip and sent the Netherworld Treasure Mirror back into the body of the Martial Tao Prime Body. The ghost hand dissipated and vanished. The Yaksha Emperor was puzzled and could not help but ask, Lady Ghost Mother, this human killed dozens of Yaksha kings and disturbed your rest just now. Are you questioning me? Before the Yaksha Emperor could finish, Brahma Ghost Mother interrupted him. Her tone was calm but it sounded hair-raising. The Yaksha Emperor shuddered and shook his head hurriedly. And no, I was just... Suddenly, a pitch-black finger extended from the darkness and its nails were long and sharp, piercing the head of the Yaksha Emperor instantly. The Yaksha Emperor's face was filled with fear and his eyes widened. An Emperor Expert's essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot with grievances. The surrounding ghosts trembled in fear and did not even dare to breathe loudly. The Void Yaksha felt even more afraid. His initial plan was to lure the Martial Tao Prime Body to Brahma Ghost Mother, and use the life of the Martial Tao Prime Body to atone for his crimes. But now, not only did Brahma Ghost Mother not kill the Martial Tao Prime Body, she even killed a Yaksha Emperor. As a bystander, the Martial Tao Prime Body was secretly shocked as well. An Emperor Realm Expert who was almost a peak existence in the medium Kiliacosm was killed by Brahma Ghost Mother so easily. To be precise, what the Yaksha Emperor did earlier on could not be considered as questioning at all. He was merely clarifying his doubts. However, Brahma Ghost Mother killed him instantly without giving him a chance to explain. In fact, the Martial Tao Prime Body even had an illusion. Brahma Ghost Mother killed the Yaksha Emperor as though she was crushing an ant. What's your name? Brahma Ghost Mother seemed to be looking at the Martial Tao Prime Body in the darkness as she asked slowly. Desolate Martial. The Martial Tao Prime Body did not hide anything. You want to return to the medium Kiliacosm? Brahma Ghost Mother asked again. Yes. The Martial Tao Prime Body nodded. Brahma Ghost Mother said, I'll send you out of the ghost world in 3 days. On what condition? The Martial Tao Prime Body asked. He felt strange that Brahma Ghost Mother agreed to this matter so easily. Foo-foo. Suddenly, a deep and hoarse laughter sounded from the darkness. Brahma Ghost Mother said, although you're very weak, you're still the Lord of Hell. The Martial Tao Prime Body frowned slightly. Did Brahma Ghost Mother mean that she was helping him leave the ghost world on account of his identity as the Lord of Hell and did not need any conditions? The Martial Tao Prime Body looked at the darkness in the distance and pondered for a moment before saying again, there's one more thing. I want to leave with that Void Yaksha called Ugly Slave. He committed a sin that warrants his death. Brahma Ghost Mother said faintly with a calm tone. However, the Void Yaksha's heart turned cold. That was the tone Brahma Ghost Mother used when she killed the Yaksha Emperor. The Martial Tao Prime Body did not seem to notice the killing intent in Brahma Ghost Mother's words and said indifferently, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal for me to protect a Yaksha as the Lord of Hell. When they heard that, Many ghosts were secretly speechless. None of them had ever dared to speak to Brahma Ghost Mother in such a tone. Rakshasa Kutadanti turned slightly and glared at the martial Tao prime body. After a long silence, Brahma Ghost Mother's voice sounded again. "You're quite bold." Thereafter, the darkness fell silent once more. The terrifying pressure that enveloped everyone gradually disappeared, as though Brahma Ghost Mother had already left. Chapter 28-22. Chapter 28-22. King Fearge. Chapter 28-22. King Fear. The world returned to silence. The gigantic shadow in the darkness gradually faded. Against the impolite request of the martial Tao prime body, Brahma Ghost Mother did not give an answer. She merely replied that he was quite bold before leaving quietly. However, all the ghosts knew that having no answer was the best answer. The void Yaksha knelt on the spot in a daze and unknowingly broke out in cold sweat. A long time later, he heaved a sigh of relief, knowing that his life was saved. Even now, he felt that it was unreal. Beneath the 9 nether abyss, Rakshasa Kutadanti stood up and turned to look at the martial Tao prime body deeply before leaving. She was not the only one. All the ghosts could tell that Brahma Ghost Mother's attitude towards the martial Tao prime body was clearly different. Perhaps it was because of his identity as the Lord of Hell or some other reason. In short, although the martial Tao prime body was a human from the medium Kiliakosm, no one in the entire ghost world dared to provoke him anymore. The corpse of the Yaksha Emperor earlier on was still warm. From top to bottom of the 9 nether abyss, the ghosts dispersed one after another. The martial Tao prime body returned to the sky above the abyss. Not far away, the void Yaksha was still kneeling on the spot with lingering fear, as though he had yet to recover. The martial Tao prime body arrived above the abyss and looked at him calmly without saying a word. The void Yaksha seemed a little helpless and lowered his head slightly, not daring to meet the gaze of the martial Tao prime body with an ashamed expression. The human before him had saved him from the prison of Bitter Springs Hell, but he had ulterior motives. And now, this human saved his life once more. I. The void Yaksha stammered, not knowing what to say. The martial Tao prime body said slowly, "You've already died once earlier on." The void Yaksha nodded instinctively. If not for the martial Tao prime body's request earlier on, there was no way Brahma Ghost Mother would let him off. The martial Tao prime body said, "Follow me from now on." However, suddenly, the words of the martial Tao prime body changed. His eyes were deep as he glared at the void Yaksha with a burning gaze and did not continue. The void Yaksha seemed to understand something. He took a deep breath of air and pierced his glabella with his fingertip, releasing a wisp of his soul. He lowered his head and raised it with both hands, handing it to the martial Tao prime body. "Thank you for giving me a new life, Master. If I harbor any ill thoughts in the future, my soul shall be completely destroyed by the world." The void Yaksha chanted a secret incantation, and the wisp of soul condensed into an imprint in the void before gradually fading and disappearing. The martial Tao prime body nodded slightly. "Since you're following me, I'll bestow you a title." It turned out that the void Yaksha was called Ugly Slave. Such a lowly name could not be considered a title at all. It could only be considered a name. "Please grant it to me, Master." The void Yaksha kowtowed once more. The martial Tao prime body waved his robes and wrote the word fear on the ground beneath his feet. He said slowly, "From now on you will be King Fear." King Fear. Looking at the word in front of him, the void Yaksha was at a loss. The martial Tao prime body, "I hope that in the future, you'll be fearless. However, you'll be able to instill fear in others." Fear. The void Yaksha murmured softly and his eyes gradually lit up. He revealed his malevolent ghost form once more and grinned excitedly. "From now on I'm King Fear." Compared to Ugly Slave, King Fear was naturally much more pleasing to the ears. Naturally, the martial Tao prime body had long made plans to plead for leniency for the void Yaksha because he valued his capabilities. Tian Huang's sect had the 7 emotions fiend generals of joy, anger, grief, fear, love, hatred and desire. Among them, there was joy monk Ming Zhen, immortal king heavenly wrath Feng Kantian, grief flute fiend Gu Tong Yu, love zither fiend Qiu Siluo, Hatred Azura Yenbeichen and Demonis Ji who represented Desire. There had never been any suitable candidate for fear. Back then, the moment the martial Tao prime body caught sight of the Void Yaksha, he had already considered this. Not to mention the Void Yaksha's capabilities, his appearance alone was terrifying enough. If he could return to the medium Kiliacosm successfully, the martial Tao prime body might not head to the heavenly world. His first destination was still the great wilderness. At this point of his cultivation, the martial Tao prime body was already confident enough to head to the great wilderness to look for Dai Yu. However, he was still worried about Tian Huang's sect. Tian Huang's sect did not have a strong foundation, and only Feng Tian was an immortal king expert. Furthermore, he was only an ordinary immortal king who had condensed a minor grotto heaven and had a shallow foundation. The main reason why he subdued the Void Yaksha was because he wanted him to head to Tian Huang's sect and be the strongest combat strength to guard it. Given the methods of this Void Yaksha, unless it was a quasi-emperor or an emperor realm expert, there was nothing to fear. In reality, the martial Tao prime body had many questions in his mind. Perhaps only Brahma Ghost Mother could give him an explanation. For example, the heat mentioned by Brahma Ghost Mother previously. For example, legends of the major Kiliacosm, what was going on with the existence of the six paths, what was the catastrophe that happened in the medium Kiliacosm, and so on. As a great emperor, Brahma Ghost Mother definitely knew many ancient secrets. However, Brahma Ghost Mother did not appear for the next 3 days. In fact, the martial Tao prime body had not even seen the appearance of Brahma Ghost Mother. He could only roughly guess from her voice that she was an old woman. The martial Tao prime body had asked King Fear before. However, even he had never seen the true appearance of Brahma Ghost Mother. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Brahma Ghost Mother's voice sounded once more. Get ready to leave. The martial Tao prime body was invigorated. He was pushed down the dry well by the tomb keeper and entered the dark hell world. He passed by the netherworld and floated in the cycle of reincarnation for an unknown period of time before entering the ghost world. Now, he was finally returning to the medium Kiliacosm. An invisible force suddenly descended. The martial Tao prime body tried to break free and realized that he could not defend at all. This meant that Brahma Ghost Mother must have stepped in personally. Under the guidance of that power, the martial Tao prime body and King Fear passed through layers of space and arrived at a pitch-black and strange beach. The martial Tao prime body frowned. It was dark ahead and the gentle breeze emitted a humid aura. This should still be in the ghost world and they had yet to leave. As though he sensed something, King Fear looked at the darkness ahead and murmured, "The river of life is ahead." Splash! As though in response to King Fear, the sound of water came from the depths of the darkness. An incomparably tall phantom rose slowly from the river and emitted a terrifying aura. It was just a simple action and the entire world seemed to be unable to withstand it and trembled slightly. Brahma Ghost Mother. The martial Tao prime body focused his gaze and tried his best to see the phantom clearly, but he could not see anything. The phantom waved her palm gently, and an ancient altar made of white bones and stained with blood gradually appeared on the beach not far away. Go on up. Brahma Ghost Mother's voice sounded again. The martial Tao prime body stood on the altar without hesitation. If Brahma Ghost Mother wanted to harm him, there was no need to go through so much trouble. King Fear hurriedly followed. A mysterious and strange incantation sounded from the direction of the river of life. The martial Tao prime body's heart skipped a beat. The words sounded familiar, as though they came from the same source as the words of the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra and Nine Springs Hell Sutra. Before he could think further, the white bone altar swayed and released streaks of blood light, forming a gigantic blood-colored beam that reached into the clouds. It tore through the darkness and enveloped the two of them before disappearing. Chapter 28-23. Chapter 28-23. 9 Nether Sin Ground. Chapter 28-23. 9 Nether Sin Ground. On a vast land, it was dilapidated and desolate. Countless living beings knelt on the ground in a black mass with no end in sight. Among the living beings, all the men were extremely ugly. They had pitch-black bodies, long vermilion hair and some even had pairs of pitch-black flesh wings on their backs. As for the women among them, they looked no different from humans. Furthermore, they were exceptionally ravishing, looking graceful and moving. Although they knelt on the ground, their slender waists could be seen and their postures were classy. The Rakshasa race. Furthermore, there were hundreds of millions of Rakshasas. In the middle of the Rakshasas was a tall building. To be precise, it was a stone statue of a woman. The woman was extremely beautiful and was dressed in white. She held a sword and stood barefoot. Her shoulders were sharp and her waist slim. With smooth skin and brows that curved beautifully, the stone statue was quite a work of art. However, even though it was only a stone statue, it exuded an indescribable charm that overwhelmed the surrounding female Rakshasas, causing one's heart to flutter. If that was the case for a mere stone statue, one could not help but wonder how beautiful the white-robed woman actually was. Beside the stone statue was a gigantic circular altar that was filled with dense mysterious runes. The Rakshasas closest to the stone statue and altar had 3 pairs of flesh wings on their backs, and their cultivation realms were clearly at the Grotto Heaven realm. There were hundreds of Grotto Heaven Rakshasas around the altar. Behind the group of Rakshasa kings were Rakshasas with 2 pairs of flesh wings. They were all perfected spirits of the Rakshasa race and numbered in the tens of thousands. Behind them were Rakshasas of the black, earth and heaven essence realms. The group of Rakshasas knelt obediently on the ground not because of the stone statue, but because of the dozen or so powerful figures that descended slowly from midair. There were more than 10 men and women with badges hanging on their waists with the words Blessed Heaven written on them. The aura and attire they exuded were clearly different from the Rakshasa race. They were incompatible with the surroundings of this world as well. The dozen or so figures stood in midair and looked down at the Rakshasas who were prostrating on the ground. They were more like the rulers of this world. In the group, a young man stood at the front with a jade fan in his hands. He looked like he had the most noble status and the others stood behind him like stars surrounding the moon. Beside the young man was an old man with a cold expression. There was a silver crescent moon-like mark on the old man's glabella, representing his background as a member of the Een Moon race. Although the Een Moon race could not compare to the Dragon race, God race and other powerful races of the upper world, they could be ranked at the top as well. That was because the Een Moon race was born with the Een Moon body and could cultivate malevolent chi. Apart from the old man of the Een Moon race who was unfathomable, the others, including the young man in the lead, were all Grotto Heaven realm kings. The young man and the old man of the Een Moon race had a badge hanging on their waists as well. However, it was different from the badges of the others. The badges on their waists had the word flame written on them. Greetings, lords. Among the Rakshasas below, an old woman of the Rakshasa race raised her head carefully with a tragic expression and asked, "The blessed heaven world has already taken away some of our perfected spirits. It's only been a few decades and the deadline isn't up yet. Why are you here to ask for them again, my lords?" Humph. A king of the blessed heaven world harumphed coldly and scolded, "Shut up. What do you know, old thing? Know your place, worthless Rakshasa sin spirits. It's your honor that we're even here. Stop whining." Another king of the blessed heaven world berated. The black mass of Rakshasas below, including hundreds of Rakshasa kings, lowered their heads with fearful expressions and did not dare to reply. Logically speaking, the number of Rakshasas in the surroundings far exceeded the dozen or so people in midair. Even the number of kings far surpassed the other party. However, the Rakshasas did not dare to resist the insults of the group in midair. Interesting. The young man surveyed the Rakshasas beneath his feet that were silent as cicadas and murmured softly with excitement in the depths of his eyes. "So this is the 9 Nether sin ground." A king of the blessed heaven world stood out and said slowly, "We're here this time round to choose a few outstanding female Rakshasas to be personal attendants of this lord from now on." The lord mentioned by the king of the blessed heaven world was that young man. The Rakshasas below were silent. Many female Rakshasas had terrified expressions and did not dare to raise their heads. Their bodies trembled slightly, afraid that they would be chosen. "Raise your heads." The king of the blessed heaven world hollered again and extended his finger, pointing above their heads. "Don't blame me for not reminding you guys. This lord comes from above and has a noble status. It's your blessing of a few lifetimes to be able to obtain the favor of this lord." None of the female Rakshasas below stood out. Although they were forced by the situation and could not resist, they were unwilling to bow down. "Lord, is there anyone you fancy?" The king of the blessed heaven world turned around and looked at the young man, bowing his head slightly. There were way too many Rakshasas below, and the young man was dazzled when he looked over. The young man surveyed the surroundings and shook his head gently, seemingly dissatisfied. He pouted and said, "These Rakshasa women are not bad-looking, but they're not worthy of my attention." The young man's gaze shifted inadvertently and suddenly landed on the stone statue of the woman. His eyes lit up. Shwa! The young man unfolded the jade fan in his hands and strolled to the side of the stone statue. He glared at the stone statue of the woman with a greedy gaze and sized her up with a lecherous glint in his eyes. When many Rakshasas saw that, they clenched their fists instinctively in shock and anger. Tsk. A strange sound came from the young man's mouth as he stared at the stone statue of the woman and licked his lips. He turned around and asked, "Who is this woman?" "Lord." A king of the blessed heaven world bowed and said, "She's the ancestor of this group of 9 Nether sin spirits. Her name is Pure Maiden 9 Nether, also known as Rakshasa Pure Maiden. She once created an era. However, she was also the one who tried to defy the heavens and died in defeat. The 9 Netherworld was destroyed and her clansmen were implicated as sin spirits for generations to come. She was imprisoned here and could never make a comeback." The young man was enlightened. "Oh, so it's her. I've heard of her before." Tisk. The young man smacked his lips and suddenly reached out to stroke the cheek of the pure maiden stone statue. What a pity. If such a beauty was still alive, wouldn't it be great to enjoy some intense fornication with her day and night? Those words caused the Rakshasas to be in an uproar. In their hearts, Pure Maiden 9 Nether was the totem of their race and could not be humiliated or blasphemed. Furthermore, Pure Maiden 9 Nether was once a great emperor. The dignity of a great emperor could not be trampled on casually. Chapter 28-24. Chapter 28-24. Sacrificial Secret Skills. Chapter 28-24. Sacrificial Secret Skill. A commotion broke out from the Rakshasa race. Most of them were Rakshasas of the black, earth and heaven essence realms. The Rakshasa perfected spirits and kings who were closest to the pure maiden stone statue were relatively calm. Although they revealed immense anger as well, they tried their best to restrain themselves and did not dare to make a sound. The young man in midair and the more than 10 Grotto Heaven realm experts behind him were unmoved. They merely sneered and looked at the Rakshasas beneath their feet with disdain. "This is too much." A female Rakshasa could not take it anymore and clenched her fists, prepared to stand up and confront the young man. The cultivation of that Rakshasa was not high, and was only equivalent to the grade 9 heaven essence realm. However, she could not tolerate the ancestor of the Rakshasa race being insulted and blasphemed by an outsider. Beside her knelt a Rakshasa perfected spirit. Sensing her actions, the Rakshasa was alarmed and extended his palm hurriedly, pressing down on her shoulder and holding her in place. "Hey Song, what are you doing?" The female Rakshasa turned around and glared at him. "Silence." Rakshasa Hey Song had a wary expression as he glanced carefully at the dozen or so figures in midair before sending a voice transmission secretly. "You, don't be rash. It's useless for you to rush out. You're no different from committing suicide." The female Rakshasa called You could not calm down and said hatefully, "Are we just going to watch that beast blaspheme Her Majesty Pure Maiden?" Rakshasa Hey Song sent a voice transmission. "What can we do? Didn't you see that even the kings of our race don't dare to act rashly? Why is that?" Yu was puzzled and said in a deep voice, "There are hundreds of kings in our race. If we join forces and fight to the death, won't we be able to defeat these dozen or so people?" Rakshasa Hey Song said, "You haven't ascended for long and don't know how powerful these people from the blessed heaven world are. The blessed heaven world badges on their waists are not only identity badges, they are also special weapons. They can summon it at any moment and use the sealing power of this world to condense them into whips. If they attack with all their might, even the kings of our race won't be able to defend at all. Although we have many kings in their eyes, we are like fish on their chopping board and can be slaughtered at will." Yu fell silent. Rakshasa Hey Song continued, "Furthermore, so what if we win? This world is a prison and our race will not be able to escape for generations to come. Countless clansmen will be implicated if we anger this group of people. Ayu sighed softly and a look of sorrow flashed through her eyes. Right then in the crowd ahead, a Rakshasa king suddenly stood up and glared at the young man in midair. The 3 pairs of flesh wings on his back flapped as he growled. The great emperor of our race cannot be blasphemed. Swoosh! In a flash, the Rakshasa king transformed into a black streak of light and charged towards the young man. The young man had a calm expression and a smile of mockery. He had no intention of attacking or even dodging. Behind him, a king of the blessed heaven world removed the blessed heaven world badge on his waist and channeled his essence spirit, pointing forward. Instantly, mysterious runes shone in the firmaments and gathered on the blessed heaven world badge like lightning, forming a long whip that lashed at the black light in midair. Piak! The Rakshasa king's figure was revealed and he fell heavily to the ground. His body was already whipped into 2 and fresh blood spewed. The Rakshasa king twitched in extreme pain. The blessed heaven world king sneered and waved the blessed heaven world badge once more. Another resplendent whip filled with runes lashed down and landed on the Rakshasa king. Piak! The 2 halves of the Rakshasa king's body were shattered and buried in the powerful blazing runes, his essence spirit destroyed. The Rakshasas who were noisy earlier on quietened down instantly. Countless Rakshasas were filled with fear when they saw that. With just 2 whips, a Rakshasa king was reduced to ashes. How could they defend against such power? The Rakshasa kings were not surprised when they saw that and even looked a little numb. They had seen too many such scenes. When they were at the black, earth and heaven essence realms, they had already witnessed it and that fear followed them deeply. There was no longer any resistance in their blood, replaced with only cowardice and fear. Every once in a while, such a brave and fearless Rakshasa would stand out and want to fight. However, what was the use? It was just like a moth flying into a flame. Who else is unconvinced? The young man surveyed his surroundings and raised his brows with a smile. He even deliberately grabbed the chest of the pure maiden stone statue. Initially, Ayu of the Rakshasa race was already discouraged. However, when she saw that, adrenaline rushed into her and she cursed loudly, "Beast, take your claws off her." Ayu, don't. Rakshasa Haesong wanted to stop her but it was already too late. He looked at the dozen or so figures in midair in horror. A blessed heaven world king sneered. Just as he was about to take out the blessed heaven world badge to kill Ayu, the young man suddenly stood in and stopped him. The young man looked at Ayu who was standing tall in the crowd with an evil glint in his eyes and nodded repeatedly, praising, not bad, you have some charm." The young man's gaze seemed as though he was about to devour someone. In the end, Ayu was still afraid and took a half step back instinctively. The young man strode over and stood in front of Ayu. He looked down at her and asked with a smile, "What's your name?" Facing this incomparably powerful young man who was far stronger than her, Ayu was extremely afraid. However, she still gritted her teeth and tried her best to suppress the fear in her heart without saying a word. "Very good. The look of you being angry pleases me to no end." The young man waved his hand and smiled. "Come over, get closer to me." Ayu wanted to resist, but she realized that her body could not be controlled at all. As though drawn by an invisible force, she flew slowly towards the young man. Ayu's heart was filled with despair and determination flashed through her beautiful eyes. She slit her wrist and a wisp of scarlet blood surged out. At the same time, she channeled her essence spirit and chanted, "With my blood as a guide and soul as a medium, connect to the 9 Nether and sacrifice me to the Brahma." Bitch! When the young man saw how determined Ayu was, he quickly retracted his smile and cursed. He grabbed Ayu's neck and threw her away. Ayu collided heavily against the pure maiden stone statue and fell onto the sacrificial altar. She coughed out large mouthfuls of blood with a pale expression. However, she did not stop chanting. Her voice was stuttering and her gaze was firm. Fresh blood surged towards the altar and spread along the runes on the altar bit by bit. As blood and soul flowed continuously, Ayu's expression turned uglier and her aura became weaker. That was a sacrificial secret skill of the Rakshasa race. Using her fresh blood as the guide and her soul as the medium, she prayed for the descent of the legendary Rakshasa ghosts from the legendary 9 Nether until her life was completely sacrificed. Of course, there was a high chance that such a sacrificial secret skill would fail and her life would be wasted. Furthermore, even if she succeeded, the cultivation realm of the Rakshasa ghost she summoned would not surpass the sacrificial offering itself, which was her. What's the use of using that sacrificial secret skill in front of me? The young man said coldly, if anyone can really descend here, I'll send them on their way back to hell to accompany you. Chapter 28-25. Chapter 28-25. You don't recognize me anymore? Chapter 28-25. You don't recognize me anymore. Self-sacrifice. Many Rakshasa perfected spirits and kings shook their heads and sighed when they saw that. As the young man had said, so what if the sacrificial secret skill was successful? Throughout the long and countless years, many clansmen had also tried to sacrifice their lives to summon experts of the 9 Nether. However, when they cultivated in this world, they were always suppressed by the sealing power of this place and their cultivation realms could never break through to the Emperor realm. Therefore, even if a Rakshasa king sacrificed himself, the clansman he could summon was only at the Grotto Heaven realm as well and could not defend against the killing methods of the living beings from the blessed heaven world. Even Grotto Heaven realm kings were useless. Even if IU could successfully summon a grade 9 Heaven Essence realm clansman, what was the use? It still could not change anything. It would just be another soul. IU lay on her back on the cold altar and allowed it to devour her bloodline and soul. She no longer had much strength left. Of course, she knew that it was useless for her to use the sacrificial secret skill. She just did not want to be humiliated, even if she had to die. IU looked at the dark sky above her head and her vision turned adrift. Gradually, memories of the past surfaced and she recalled some of her time in the lower worlds. She saw the first time she met that person in the calm and peaceful town filled with peach blossom trees. It was not a pleasant experience. There, she lost her freedom and was forced to submit to him. However, for some unknown reason, when she recalled her experience in the town, a faint smile appeared on her face. Initially, she was indignant and unwilling. Later on, she began to feel conflicted. When she regained her freedom, she should have been happy. However, for some unknown reason, she felt disappointed. It was also because of their relationship that the Rakshasa race of the primordial 9 races was spared in the final battle of the 10,000 races. She witnessed that person grow continuously and rise all the way. In the end, he stood at the peak of the world and became famous for all eternity. Those scenes flashed before her eyes in a loop before her death. In the end, it stopped on a black-haired, purple-robed figure. It was only before her death that she realized that even after ascending for so many years, she had never forgotten that person in the depths of her heart. The altar beneath her seemed to be shimmering with blood light. IU's vision had already become blurry. In her daze, a black-haired, purple-robed figure seemed to have appeared before her eyes. It gradually synthesized with the figure in her memories and looked so real and illusory. However, the purple-robed man wore a cold silver mask. IU did not think too much about it and only thought that it was an illusion caused by her dying breath. Right then, the purple-robed man lowered his head slightly and looked over. Their eyes met. IU smiled. The purple-robed man's eyes resembled that person's as well. A puzzled thought flashed through IU's chaotic mind. Since this figure was an image in her memories, why would he lower his head and look into her eyes? A look of surprise seemed to flash through the purple-robed man's eyes as well. Rakshasa you. Suddenly, the purple-robed man murmured. This voice. Suddenly, IU's eyes widened as she glared at the purple-robed man without blinking with disbelief. How could it be? How was that possible? However, that voice was clearly him. Her heart was in a mess and she could not tell if this was a dream or reality. Or could it be that she had already died and arrived in the netherworld? Right then, the purple-robed man leaned over slightly and helped her up from the cold sacrificial altar, saying softly, "You don't recognize me anymore." Although those words were soft, they exploded like thunder in her ears. Before she could react, a vast life force surged into her body and her severely injured body healed in the blink of an eye. Even the bloodline and soul that was lost earlier on were recovering rapidly. At the same time, Rakshasa Yu gradually regained her senses and looked at the purple-robed man beside her in a daze. She looked at his deep and bright eyes in disbelief. She merely grabbed the purple-robed man's arm tightly, not daring to let go. She was afraid that the purple-robed man before her would suddenly disappear after she let go. The scene here caused quite a commotion among the Rakshasas as well. Even the hundreds of Rakshasa kings were dumbfounded and confused, let alone the low-level Rakshasas. What was going on? Did the sacrificial secret skill succeed? However, Rakshasa Yu was only halfway through her dermic art and her blood had not completely dyed the entire altar. Logically speaking, it was impossible for her to summon someone over. Furthermore, 2 people were summoned at once. Even if a Rakshasa king used the sacrificial secret skill, he could not summon 2 clansmen. What was even stranger was that the 2 of them were not Rakshasas at all. The black-haired, purple-robed man in front looked like a human. His body seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fog and his cultivation realm could not be seen. The person behind was tall and wore a pitch-black cloak from head to toe. The hood covered his face and his appearance could not be seen. However, this person exuded a ferocious and barbaric aura. It was clear that he was not from the Rakshasa race. Right then, the person extended his greenish-black claws and removed the hood on his head, revealing a malevolent and ugly face. His skin was green and he had fangs that were intimidating. The Yaksha race. When the tall living being revealed his true appearance, many Rakshasa kings recognized him immediately and exclaimed. When the Yaksha saw the scene before him, he suddenly grinned. His eyes bulged and his entire face looked even more ferocious and terrifying. The Rakshasa kings swept their spirit consciousnesses and could not help but be shocked. This was not only a Yaksha, he was also a perfected grotto heaven king. The aura emitted by the Yaksha king was even more terrifying than theirs. Many Rakshasas were dumbfounded. A female Rakshasa at grade 9 of the Heaven Essence realm summoned 2 people halfway through her sacrificial secret skill. One of them was a human and the other was a Yaksha king. Not far away, the young man frowned slightly when he saw that, seemingly surprised as well. However, before long, his expression returned to normal. Waving his hand gently, he said indifferently, "Kill them all." No matter how many people they summoned or what race they summoned, they were all ants in his eyes. In fact, he did not even have to attack personally to kill them. Understood. A king of the Blessed Heaven World agreed and stood out, taking off the Blessed Heaven World badge at his waist unhurriedly. Watch out. When she saw that, Rakshasa Yu reacted and shook the purple-robed man's arm hurriedly, reminding loudly with an anxious expression. The purple-robed man seemed to have fallen into a trance and his mind wandered. He did not seem to have heard Rakshasa Yu's warning either. However, the Yaksha king behind him had already vanished. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.